Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Wow. 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 We welcome you into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. The NFL season, sadly, has come to an end. We've got the Super Bowl in our rearview mirror. I don't know that anybody expected what we saw last night, except for us here in the sports bar. Our predictions weren't that far off, Gino.
I said 81-0.
Nobody cares when we're right. Nobody wants to pat us on the back when we're right. We both had the Eagles winning. I think I said, 59-12, I think was my final score. Wasn't that far off. Can't believe that the Eagles did what they did to the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to react to it, break it down, and discuss it all day today, all this afternoon here in the sports bar with some of our favorites. You're welcome to join us at any time on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4FAN. That's 585-866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at 135 West Commercial Street in ER. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
Yeah, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we will talk to the Hall of Famer, 13 Wham, Buffalo Plus's Mike Catalana, who, of course, he's got roots in New Jersey outside of Philadelphia, so it'll be interesting to get his take on how the Eagles had this magical ride and how that game, if you were an Eagle fan, oh my gosh, what was that like? You're just like knowing we have this, like early in the third quarter, this is not going to go away. We'll talk to Mike Catalan. Also, yeah, we had some Bills news over the weekend I think we can get to with Mike here. That Sean McDermott reversing course on one thing he said at the season-ending press conference. Mike Catalana coming up at the bottom of the hour.
We are a show for the people, by the people, which is why, coming up at 425, as your request, Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan, in Kansas City. Sports bar nemesis joining us the day after.
Yeah, so Jay Binkley, who it was Steve and Victor said, no, you're not going to invite Binkley to come on. You're going to tell Binkley to come on.
Get the invite.
So
it's going to surprise him.
The way I texted him, I'm like, Jay, you are coming on at 425 today. So I'm assuming he's going to say yes. And the question I have for you and anybody else, if you're familiar with Jay Binkley, always comes in and, this chest out.
He's a great dude. He's got a great attitude, and he's so high on his team. He is always high on his team.
Is it more humble, or is he taking the wider approach that, oh, wait a second, we made it to the Super Bowl. We have these rings.
I think both. I think you can do both. I mean, the Chiefs were embarrassed by the Eagles, but winning back-to-back Super Bowls is nothing to be upset about. And I have a feeling when we're done talking to Binkley, he's going to have the tires pumped up so high on this team that next year we can't sleep on the Chiefs just because the Eagles blew them out in the Super Bowl. I don't think you can sleep on the Chiefs. The only comparison, or the biggest comparison I could come up with, I mean, the game felt like the Super Bowls we grew up watching when we were in the 80s and 90s. One-sided almost every year. You never got a good game. We've been spoiled. I mean, we've had some really good games. We've had comebacks. We've had overtimes. This reminded me of Broncos-Seahawks, where the Seahawks humiliated Peyton Manning and the Broncos. Remember that Super Bowl? It was completely one-sided. That's what this one reminded me.
Dude. It reminded me of Super Bowl 26, 27, and 28. I mean, honestly, the Bills were clocked by Washington that second Super Bowl, and then a few touchdowns late. And as my friend Dennis, the Washington fan, would say, those points were only cosmetic. Yeah, for Kansas City last night, what did it end up being, 40-22? Yeah, a couple touchdowns late. Those are stat patters for sure. Yeah, this is what we kind of grew up with, but I didn't picture the Chiefs to be that version of the Denver Broncos or the Buffalo Bills from the 90s or whatever team that just gets their butts handed to them. Although maybe we just kind of overlooked that actually this did happen one time before with Kansas City. The Buccaneers pretty much cleaned their clock in the pandemic year. But we kind of look back at that and been like, it was Brady. That was a good Buck team. I didn't think any of us, we said it in jest. Did we really believe Philadelphia would do that? Really?
It's funny. I don't know that we really believed it because how do you bet against Patrick Mahomes? That's what everybody wants to say. How do you bet against Patrick Mahomes? Now, how do you bet against a team that is actually built the way teams need to be built from the inside out with these mountains of human flesh that they have in the middle of the defensive line, in their offensive line? I mean, to get Mekhi Becton to play the way he played this season after he started his career with the Jets. I mean, it's an indictment of the Jets and their culture, really. Like, that guy's just massive. To see him slapping Chris Jones around, I mean, it was really eye-opening to see just that kind of domination in the trenches. And I think it's going to force a lot of teams, and I think the Bills should think about this, a lot of teams into changing the way they are built, trying to you never want to play catch up, but at the same time, who's matching up with those guys?
Well, this was already the plan, right? Before the Super Bowl, what did we talk about all last week? Myles Garrett. If we only had Myles Garrett, if we only had more strength and muscle, no, this isn't a year for the wide receiver train. This is a year where you need mofos on defense. You need ball hawks. You need just guys that are going to stick their nose in there. We knew this from the Buffalo standby before the game, but then it's on display. Hey, this is how you beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But Danger, it's really nothing new. Like, if you ask any Giant fan, okay, the Giant fan on the outside, how did the Giants win? Oh, my gosh, it was Eli Manning and David Tyree and everything. Sure, that was part of it. It was the fact that they had a defensive line that only blitzed. They didn't blitz. They only sent 4.
That's it.
They had Justin Tuck and Strahan. And
you imagine Sean McDermott, this is exactly what he wants, is a defensive line with a rotation of guys where you can get after the quarterback by just rushing that front 4. And you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. I don't know what the answer is to stopping those two. Just those two men. Those two themselves are just they're game records. Their size, their physicality, their athleticism. I know that they're considered are they character guys? I don't care. I don't care the mistakes you made in college. If you can play like that, my God, it was remarkable to see. I mentioned Mekhi Becton. I mean, I thought Mekhi Becton was everything that you heard about him with the Jets, okay, this guy doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to work for it. He doesn't get after it. When he was on the sideline injured, I'm like, here he comes. Here comes that old Mekhi Becton. I'm injured, and I'm going to step down at the time that my team needs. Nope, he got back out there. I'm like, wow. This Eagles team, whatever they've built, it is a model for everybody else to kind of follow. I thought it was really impressive. What they did was really impressive. And I think it also showed some deficiencies that we knew were there with the Chiefs, but it was just highlighted. The lack of run game. The idea that you had Kareem Hunt and less than 100% Isaiah Pacheco, 49 rushing yards on 11 attempts, and you were basically forced to abandon the run because you got into a hole so quick. The idea that you can get after Mahomes and you can rattle a guy who might go down as the greatest of all time, but now in 2 Super Bowls, he's been rattled and he's made costly errors, and those turnovers were meaningful. Your guy, Cooper DeJean, Gino.
Cooper DeJean.
What could have been?
Oh, Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, Gino.
That I wanted the Bills to take in the first round. He falls in the second round, but it was in that space where the Bills didn't have a pick in the second round. Goes to Philadelphia. Yeah, that was it right there. That makes it 17-0 at that point. Where do you go from Kansas City? I know there were people, and when we bring Binkley on, go get a Devontae Adams. Maybe Myles Garrett. Fix that offensive line.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, and I've read this, and this is worth exploring. What if the Bills had beaten Kansas City? Will we be coming in today on the worst hangover in our lifetimes, meaning, oh my gosh, it was right there, and we just lost the Super Bowl? I'm not so sure. Because the way I look at Kansas City, that was the flaw Buffalo couldn't expose, that offensive line. I think the Bills' offensive line way better than Kansas City. So I would have liked to see that test. Look, it wouldn't have been clean, certainly, but my gosh, it was like you had turnstiles there. Just come on through. Get to Patrick Mahomes here.
And I know a lot of Bills fans were probably thinking to themselves, geez, the way the Chiefs look, I mean, the Bills could have looked better than that. in that game, in those situations. I don't know that any team was going to beat Philadelphia the way they were playing yesterday. The way that line, both defensive and offensive, were just mauling people the entirety of that game. You could look back to 2023 and you could say, all right, well, the Eagles just beat the Bills on a kind of miraculous field goal in the rain. You know, you could look at how these two teams performed in terms of their 2024 season performance and be like, oh, the Bills would have given them a fight. But I think you still would have to give the edge to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia probably would have done, maybe not as gruesome as what we saw yesterday to the Chiefs, but they probably would have had their way. I mean, I think of a guy like Ed Oliver just getting swallowed up by that offensive line. You know, just what answer do you have for that offensive line from Philadelphia? You see them execute the tush push, and you're like, that's what it's supposed to look like. I wonder if Josh Allen and his height are such a disadvantage for the way they try to execute it in Buffalo.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, right?
Don't do it. It's okay. There are other plays where if you need 6 inches or a yard, you can execute and get that yard if you need. Especially it was like down by the goal line. I'm like, okay, they're gonna try this, and you see Kansas City packing it in. And unlike Buffalo,
Chris Jones got swallowed up.
And then Chris Jones holding, like getting his neck cranked there. That I'm like, oh, this is really not good at this point.
Right. Yeah, just the thorough domination.
The other thing too, because I thought a big difference in the AFC Championship game was the battle of the coordinators. Here's Steve Spagnuolo, Joe Brady. Sit down. I'm going to tell you about this. Look, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. And
Vic Fangio.
Vic Fangio. We pointed out on Friday. Yes. He's 0-8 all-time against Mahomes, 2 of those games with Miami. But, okay, here were the quarterbacks he had in Denver. On the offense, they averaged only 11 points per game. You're not going to win any games. Statistically, he was way ahead of the curve. I'm like, well, he's got the guys now to do this. And that's the part. Danger, that's the part. You could say it, Oliver. You could say whatever. For Buffalo to win a Super Bowl, is Bobby Babich the guy you really trust? Or is he just a guy that knows how to get guys motivated and football platitudes and everything?
I think he's an extension of Sean McDermott, and that's it. It's still Sean McDermott's defense. So if you're going to say who matches up against Vic Fangio, it'd have to be Sean McDermott. It's Sean McDermott's defense, and can he, as a head coach, knowing he has an extension as a defensive coordinator, can he relay that message to him and be like, this is what we can expect. This is what they might show us that we won't expect. I just think when you look at the players they have on that defense, we mentioned Davis, we mentioned Carter. I mean, Zach Bond is with the interception, a guy that was what? I mean, really was what? He's Terrell Dotson, right? Like he's that kind of player in the NFL, and here he is, a nominee for Defensive Player of the Year.
That play happens because Mahomes can't step into the pass.
Right.
He's just doing. He could do it with his arm angle.
Right.
No, it doesn't work.
Josh Sweat made some money. Josh Sweat is going to be a free agent. Josh Sweat made some money on that field in New Orleans last night. The rookies. I mean, when you have Quinyon Mitchell, when you have Cooper DeJean making the play that he made, I just think that defense on all 3 levels. Going into that game, we discussed it on Friday. When you're Vic Fangio, it's an embarrassment of riches. I don't know that Fangio has had anything like that since his days as defensive coordinator with the 49ers. It was really impressive, and he's well deserving of that Lombardi trophy. That defense was spectacular. And for what it's worth, I think that Kansas City's defense struggled. I think they didn't really know how to contain Jalen Hurts. They were so focused on Saquon. Saquon became an afterthought. Hurts had 72 rushing yards. He was the one that found the gaps when the defense, within the Chiefs' defensive schemes. It makes you wonder if the Bills would have been that team, would Josh Allen have kind of played that role of it? If they could do it over again, would Josh Allen tuck and run more against the Chiefs? Given what we just saw in the Super Bowl and what Jalen Hurts was able to accomplish.
Honestly, sure, the Eagle offense, they did what they had to do, but that game was clearly won when you saw Kansas City, again, looking like a 52-17 final. Okay, the Bills losing to the Cowboys the first time around. It really was that bad. And if Kansas City is just getting off the field, I mean, what are the numbers there? 24 first half yards. I mean, it was ridiculous. So, yeah, and it's certainly the Chiefs' defense gets a little bit of the blame, but the offense just not showing up the way they did. And I don't know, maybe part of it's human nature too, Danger, because they've been here, they've won that, and they just did not look like the hungry team. And coming out, didn't you think at least Kansas City would try to make this a game at halftime? Didn't you think at least with Andy Reid and his coaches and the first play, all right, they get it to Pacheco. That's a nice gain here. And I'm thinking, all right, if they make it to 24-8, we're going to have a game here. And then 2 pass attempts and 2 sacks, and we're back to where we started.
And speaking of the game, how the game started, didn't you? I was nervous because the way the game started, I'm like, oh, here we go. The officials, the calls are already going there with the first drive. I'm like, oh, here we go.
It's going to be offensive pass interference. Really?
This is why I don't like blaming officials, right? Like, nobody's going to complain about that call. That call will be forgotten because why? Because Philadelphia just smacked them.
Yeah, they rose above it.
It did. Yeah, it didn't come down to one play. That's why I hate going back and saying, well, that one call really hurt. No, do what you have to do, execute on another play, and you'll get to where you need to be. Just an absolutely stunning performance by the Eagles on both sides of the ball. And to think that they pressured Mahomes and sacked Mahomes as many times as they did without blitzing. I mean, really, if you're a team aspiring to win an NFL championship, and you all are, what the Eagles have is now what the template will be. And I think you will see a lot of teams in the NFC specifically. The Lions feel like they might be set up for it better than most because of their offensive line, because of what they have on their offense.
Right, and let's say they land a Myles Garrett or they get some other big piece with Hutchinson coming back. Oh, that's going to be a team to reckon with. I think we have to take a look at where Philadelphia ended up last year. Because, yes, they beat the Bills in that rain game, exciting game in overtime right after Thanksgiving, and then they went into the tank. They still made the postseason, but, my gosh, do you bring back Sirianni? Of course you bring back Sirianni, Gene. Of course you bring him back. And, of course, they won the Super Bowl. Of course they rattled off all these wins in a row. You saw him on the field. You know what I'm talking about. You saw Big Dom. Of course the Eagles are Super Bowl champs, Gene, because he's Italian. Well, they brought in the Italian defensive coordinator. And they beefed up on that side of the
Vic
ball.
Fangio.
Listen, if you play fantasy football, you know, like the Eagles from the 2023 season, the defense, what the heck was that?
Terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. So you can't find a quarterback, but my gosh, you can put together a defense if you really put your mind to it.
We should, before we get to Mike Catalana, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus, discuss the other bit of news from the weekend pertaining to the Bills. It turns out they are going to move on from their special teams coordinator, Matthew Smiley.
It's not the story itself. It's the why I'm interested in, or how, I guess. How? Matthew Smiley moving on. Well, yeah, I would hope so. We were all kind of expecting this, right? 9 men on the field, not to mention 10. What other gaffes would you kind of also put in there for the Buffalo Bills? You can go back to the opener against the Jets in 2023. Matthew Smiley has always been kind of on thin ice here in Buffalo, and to me that was kind of an obvious move until Sean McDermott said, no, he's coming back, and kind of didn't leave the door open. Normally, in these situations, Danger, you would say, well, we're going to take some time. We're going to go through our evaluations. Sean didn't do that. Going to run it all back. And we're like, all right, I guess that's the case. So what happened? What happened between the season-ending press conference and that? All coaches lie. Let's just kind of say that, including Sean McDermott, okay? Because, Sean, you are a liar.
Yeah.
You're a liar. I'm not going to say you're incompetent. You're a very smart guy, okay? You know what you're doing, and you could just tell the bald-faced lie. So what changed in between? I'm going to present to you a theory, Mike Danger, and then you tell me if I'm right. It is New Orleans, and down there for the Buffalo Bills is everyone, including the owner, Terry Pegula, and Brandon Beane, and Pete Coelho, and they're all around there, and somebody puts a bug in Terry's ear like, what? I saw that fake punt that Denver ran against you, or that block punt against the Rams. Did Terry Pegula sit down with Sean and just kind of say, really?
Yeah,
Really?
I'll buy that. I'll absolutely buy that because I think at the end of the year, Sean McDermott wasn't really going to fire anybody. Wasn't feeling like we needed to fire anybody. Nobody wants to fire somebody that they've worked with closely unless that person's incompetent or that person is a bad human. I don't know that Matthew Smiley is either of those things. He's probably a decent coach, but too many errors for our liking. And I think you have to make that change and hope that you can improve in your special teams game. But when he said that, it was like, I think everybody's eyes rolled back like, really? Okay, well, the coach is going to run it back. Good luck. So, yeah, I do think it probably came from above. I don't know that McDermott would put himself in that position to contradict himself publicly by saying one thing one week and then having to do another the next. So it came from above. It had to have come from above. That's the only way I would. I mean, unless McDermott somehow reviewed the season and just said after the review of the season, he almost as if he forgot all of these plays existed. Like, oh, yeah, no, this isn't good enough. We have to do better. Or somebody is available that they believe isn't a clear and obvious upgrade that they didn't have available a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
Or it could have just been kind of an HR thing, Danger, where you got to do the season-ending press conference. You haven't. In your mind, you made that option, but there are certain things legally you have to do here. And Sean McDermott gets up there and just tells the lie, looks you dead in the eye and says, I'd buy that too, that he knew then and it's just a lie. We like to kind of kid and joke with the McDermott McLies. And again, all coaches lie in this.
Yeah, we just like to point out the ones that are just a little bit over the top. Andre Roberts is a Hall of Famer. Bad quarterback is a really good quarterback. Okay, so settle down. Settle down with the lies. You're just heaping on a little too much respect. We get to Mike Catalana next. Let him do a victory lap here in the sports bar. You see him on 13 Wham. You see him on Buffalo Plus. He's going to join us next. We'll talk Eagles and Chiefs with 13 Wham Sports Director and the Hall of Famer, Mike Catalana, next on The Fan.
Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl MVP.
It's never been about anyone else. It's just been about the journey of embracing everything and trying to grow and be the best that I can be, you know. And so to be able to bring a championship back to Philadelphia means everything.
Meanwhile, we did have some news out of Buffalo on Super Bowl Sunday. Multiple reports of the Bills firing special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley. 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus's Mike Catalana joining us next year in the Sports Bar. The Amerks playing a rare Tuesday night game tomorrow night. They are in Cleveland. Rochester coming off a win Friday against Belleville. Luka Doncic probable tonight. This would be his Laker debut. Los Angeles hosting Utah. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Vic did an unbelievable job all year, getting everybody on the same page, the fundamentals of the game. We didn't need the pressures at all yesterday. We were getting home with 4 and being able to keep 7 in coverage, and he kept dialing it up. He did an awesome job, and the defense did an awesome job yesterday.
Super Bowl winning head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni, and his defensive coordinator. We bring in Mike Catalana, 13 Wham Sports, Buffalo Plus, the Hall of Famer, also an Eagles guy. And Mike, I don't know that anybody could have predicted what we saw. Were you surprised that the Eagles were able to handle the Chiefs in the dominating fashion in which we saw?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, I think you assume it's going to be a close game. I will say I thought the Eagles were the better team, and I picked them to win the game. But, it's Mahomes on the other side, right? It's Andy Reid on the other side. And you just assume that they're going to figure stuff out, and it would go back and forth. And then you watch the game play out, and I think we could all, because, everybody's watched Mahomes so many times and watched him against the Bills, and he's had success against everybody. Never seen him like that. I thought the game for Kansas City was an abject failure, top to bottom. Thought Mahomes was awful. His offensive line was terrible. And Andy Reid, I don't know what he did last night. He stood there and watched. They didn't make adjustments, and the Eagles just basically, we always say, what's Daquan Jones say? Sometimes the game is just one man whooping another man. That's what that game was. The Eagles D-line just destroyed the Chiefs' offensive line, and it was a mismatch. I mean, they have a first down on the first play of offense, and then didn't have another one until the third quarter. It was just wild to see.
Yeah, and so fun, I would imagine, if you're a Philadelphia fan. Mike, if we just kind of take this and turn it, in the direction of Buffalo, I mean, what does it say about the Bills? Because I think a lot of us going into that AFC Championship game recognized, hey, that Chiefs offensive line, not so good, and the Bills couldn't get home. And you've seen some other people say, maybe this was a blessing in disguise, because if it was Buffalo against Philadelphia, although Buffalo's offensive line is certainly better, but just your thoughts on where the Bills might have, stood up here.
Well, they would have been better than the Chiefs. I don't think there's any question about that. And look, I've seen the Eagles play a lot, and they haven't played better than that. So the way they played last night, they would have beaten anybody. But I will say this, the Bills' offensive line certainly is far superior, I think, to the Chiefs. So I think that would have turned it around a little bit. I would have said also, the way the Eagles' offense has played, I mean, what they score yesterday, 33 points on offense, and they really kind of shut it down in the second half. And that was with Barkley into stopping. I don't know if the Bills would be equipped to do that against a run game and still be able to defend the pass, but Kansas City went all in on stopping Barkley, and then Hurts picked him apart. So I absolutely believe the Bills would have given the Eagles a much better game than what the Chiefs did. But that was in that case of yesterday when I just think the Eagles played, like I said, by far the best game they've played, certainly this season.
Mike, when we heard from Bean and McDermott, their end-of-season press conferences, they both kind of said that it's a dangerous game to try and mold your team to beat one team specifically, in this case specifically the Chiefs. after watching what the Eagles did last night and what they've done to get to this point in terms of constructing and building their roster and really building it from the inside out, when you look at that defense, that defensive line, when you look at the offensive line and just how massive these guys are, this is going to force a lot of teams to kind of rethink their strategy in terms of roster building, will it not?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles have had that strategy as a franchise back to when Andy Reid was there. It was build with the O-line, build with the D-line, and they had a veteran defensive coordinator, was Jim Johnson back then, and, now it's Vic Fangio. And, it's funny, on that D-line, I mean, you look at it, and, they drafted Smith out of Georgia, but they got him at the end of the first round in their second pick. Obviously, they made the Jalen Carter pick, who slipped down in the draft with his issues at Georgia, but they had made a trade with the Saints. By the way, I'd advise any general manager, trade with the Saints. They'll do something dumb. And that's when the Eagles ended up with a top 10 pick. But, you got Josh Sweat on the other side. They were going to tell Sweat, go find a trade, and he was going to move on. They moved on from Hassan Reddick. I mean, it is a different kind of D-line. They just got great play out of it. What has made the Eagles so much better this year, and look, they haven't had that kind of pressure with a four-man line all year. I mean, they've done well, but not like that. But they cover so much better than they used to. I mean, what Fangio did with them, drafting the two rookies, again, investing high picks in defense, their number one pick, Quinyon Mitchell, was outstanding. And you saw Cooper DeJean that they got in the second round. And they signed Zach Bond, who was a nobody from the Saints, and he ends up being an all-pro player. So they really shored up the back part of it. But you're right. They have invested. And obviously the offensive line has been a strength of that team. They got Jeff Satlin as the coach, who's the best in the business. But that's where I would say for the Bills, like, there's some issues they have to work on, but it's awful nice to be looking at your team and saying, you got the quarterback, you got a running back, you've got the O-line. Like, there's a lot of pluses for the Bills going forward, and it's got to be on the defensive side. Really all three levels, mostly the line and the secondary, but that's really the way the Eagles have built that team, and you saw it play out last night.
Mike Catalana, 13 Wham Buffalo Plus, joining us, and I think a lot of Bills fans would say, yeah, let's fortify the defense here. And what was the big storyline outside of the Chiefs and Eagles last week, and certainly the MVP? It was Myles Garrett, saying, hey, I would like a trade here. Mike, every Bills fan would say, yes, bring him on board, but let's just be realistic. There's going to be a lot of teams vying for the services. How would you handicap the idea of bringing in Myles Garrett to Buffalo?
Well, he wants to go to a winning team, right? That's going to be the deal. They're going to end up having to make. I hear these people talk about like the Patriots and teams like that. Myles Garrett doesn't want to go there, and even a team like the Ravens, to me, they're out. I don't think Cleveland's trading them to Baltimore to see him twice a year, unless they were to give up everything for him. And you could say the Bills are in the camp, but they're not in the division. I think the Bills would definitely have a shot at him. You got to give up a lot. He is he's 29, but we're talking about probably the best in the business at what he does. I mean, when they signed Von Miller, he was a few years older. What was he, 32? And, he got him as a free agent. This would be different. I would make a play for him. I would call up the Raiders and see if they'll do anything with Max, because he can't stand Mahomes. He's a little younger, and he's a wild man on the D-line. But they need impactful players. I kind of like the impactful players. I think the inside of the line frees up the other guys. But the draft is loaded with D tackles. That's what they should be investing in. I know they've done a lot of it, but they need more. They need a game wrecker. They need a difference maker in there. Ed Oliver's a really good player, but you see what Jalen Carter does. Like, it's just different. So, yes, you're asking me, would I make a play for him? Absolutely. Is it going to cost you? Yes, but you need a difference maker to help that defense, and that's the biggest difference maker that could be available this offseason.
I just feel like we had some salt in the wound yesterday as well. I mean, the Chiefs lose. We're all happy about that, but then Xavier Worthy with 2 touchdowns, garbage time scores. But Xavier Worthy has, kind of came on here late in the season and in the postseason. And I think, this is going to be the latest in the long list of examples where we could be like, oh, that's going to haunt us for a while. what exactly was the message at the end of the season? Was Keon Coleman wasn't right after his injury when he returned, and we certainly are. It feels lopsided. The idea that the Bills gave up that pick, the Chiefs got Worthy, and we ended up taking Coleman there in the second round. This offseason, Coleman's checklist is what? Get bigger, get faster, get more refined?
Yeah, and they didn't just, say he was hurt. They were disappointed at the way he came back after being hurt. I mean, they used those words, both of them did, that they were not happy with the way it went after his injury. And, sometimes I looked at Worthy and I thought, because, people would get mad. I hated the trade. I don't think you talk to Brett Veach if he calls at all. I think he's the only GM you don't talk to. I don't care about the Jets. I don't care about the Dolphins. You'll win those trades. I just don't help the Chiefs at all. And I hated it. And then somebody was like, well, what about Worthy? And I wasn't even sure if they would take a guy like Worthy. But would you trade Keon straight up for Worthy right now when you've watched him play? And if Kansas City gets Rashee Rice back healthy next year, that's a lot of speed they're going to have in that offense if he's healthy. I didn't like the trading back. I mean, I said to you guys before, I love Brian Thomas. I would have tried to move up to get him because I look and they use this asset on Keon. It doesn't really solve anything. It doesn't give them what they need, which is an outside player and one with more speed. And so you have Keon. I think he can help you, but they got to be in the market for another guy, whether it's an early draft pick or a free agent or a trade or whatever they end up doing. So, I think Xavier Worthy is going to be an important player for the Chiefs, and you're going to see him a lot over the next few years.
13 Wham Buffalo Plus's Mike Catalana joining us. If there was one silver lining of the Buffalo Bills not making the Super Bowl, Mike, it was that, Josh Allen got to attend the NFL honors where, he knew he was getting this, essentially, the MVP. I guess my question is, what does he do for an encore here? Can he even get better next year? Your thoughts on Allen winning the MVP, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, look, he played great this year. I thought he was a leader. He was smart with the ball, and he still made a ton of plays, and he made big plays, which also, there's a whole other argument about winning the MVP. And sometimes people, disregard. They just look at numbers, and they disregard that he beat the Chiefs, that he beat the Lions in Detroit, right, and did all those things because he made big plays in those games, and that's what he did. He can put up better numbers. There's no question in my mind. I think he kind of maxed out the roster he has in terms of his passing numbers. I mean, when Mac Hollins is your deep guy and you're still making plays, I think that's impressive. So give him another weapon. I mean, we've seen it before, right? As great as Brady was, and I'm not saying Josh is Brady, but as great as Brady was, you give him Randy Moss and he throws, 55 touchdown passes in a year? I'm not saying you're going to get that guy, but give him some more help. He can absolutely bump up those numbers too and still play great. And who knows, maybe next year when the vote comes, it's a no-brainer, and he's going to win it anyhow because I think he's that kind of player. So he was great. You can get him help, and he can be even better offensively for them next year.
Okay, since we're talking about the Bills, Mike, what was your take on the reversal of course here on Matthew Smiley? Because it sounded like the vote of confidence on Sean McDermott's exit press conference was that Smiley was going to come back, that they were going to run it back, and then the change of course here over the weekend.
I really don't think it was a change of course. I think he said it because they hadn't done it yet, and that's it basically. If he says we don't know what we're going to do, then you just figure he's getting fired. I just had a feeling. We even left there and we were all like, he's coming back, but it didn't, I don't know why. It didn't sound as convincing. I'm not surprised at all. The special teams were not good. And I know there were some issues with some injuries. You know how that happens. But that's life of a special teams coach. You got to be ready for all those things. And I just thought they looked ill-prepared. I mean, you had to play, in the end of that game they lost on the Rams, and I know it was one play left. They had 9 guys on the field. They had mistakes like that during the year. Fake punts, a couple of them they gave up, let alone, giving up some big returns, including one in the championship game. So it's not all on the coach, but there's times when you say, okay, we're moving on. So I guess because of the semantics and the words. I mean, he did say he's coming back, but I was a little surprised they said that. I thought it might be we haven't made all the decisions on it, and then maybe you go from there. But you had to have a feeling they were thinking about doing it. So, nice man. I'm sure he'll land on his feet, but the Bills needed to make a change.
Speaking of nice men, you had a Dick Duran story. I mean, Mike, you were long. I mean, gosh, 74, way too young to be gone there. And I just always thought of him as somebody who came in but didn't really have a quarterback. And it was a time in Bills history where you had Marv Levy as the GM. It just didn't line up right.
You know, when I said he's just a nice person. Like, he was a great athlete, high school and college. In fact, I think it's at the TD Bank. I think I saw it there in Boston. I was there for a game. They have these displays for great high school and college athletes in Boston, and there's one for Dick Duran. He is an outstanding athlete, three or four sports, I think it was. And, he's a good player in the NFL, one of those old school guys. He was so polite. He would say all the time, if you remember, he'd be like, my guys played really hard. Like, he's the kind of guy everybody liked. He was, I can remember for that period of time I was flying on the team plane. And, he's the kind of guy that, says, excuse me when he's walking by me. You know what I mean? He's just that man. He's not one-minded, and sometimes they can be a little nutty. I don't think he was a great head coach. I think he was just a good football guy. And, one of those people, I think his wife, if I'm not mistaken, I think his wife just passed away.
Wow.
Wasn't too long ago. So, good man, good for the franchise. He's one of those guys, like you said, it's part of that whole drought era, but a good person who, rest in peace now that he's passed away.
Speaking of guys that are good coaches, maybe not good head coaches, but you're losing your offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, Mike, to the Saints. You mentioned the Saints earlier. Do a deal with the Saints. They'll screw it up somehow. Did they get it right with Kellen Moore? What kind of a head coach do you think the former Eagles offensive coordinator is going to make?
I don't know what he's going to be like. He seemed to be that guy, former quarterback, was in Dallas, was doing well. And, and then they moved him along, and then he went out to the Chargers, and it wasn't that great. Came to the Eagles, and, Jalen Hurts has a different coordinator every year, or it feels like. I think he's only had once where it's been 2 years in a row. I think it was Shane Steichen, but most of the time it's a single year for him, and so now Moore really evolved with this Eagles team, and my guess is when they hired him, they thought he's the kind of guy that could be in the mix for something. So I don't know what kind of head coach he's going to be. It's funny with Dallas, they had some of these guys in the building. You see what happened with Washington. They let him leave. He becomes a head coach. So, and they had more before. He did a really nice job with the Eagles. Nothing spectacular, but it did get better and better as it went along. He was very adaptable. But you guys know this. It's one thing to be a play caller. It's another thing to be the head coach. Can he walk in that room and command that team? Maybe. He also has a lousy team with a terrible situation with the cap because they've mismanaged it for years without a quarterback. So they're starting pretty low in New Orleans. They got a lot of work to do. But, you wish him the best because he's going to need it down in New Orleans.
Seems strange. That's it, Mike. It's the ride has ended, but how many weeks to the Combine? They don't give you much of an off season anymore, Mike.
No, we're going, let's see, it's right at the end, the 23rd, I think, is when we head to Indy. So we'll be out there looking at some of the guys they could pick. It'll be something to see. I wanted to, we were talking about the Bills. I did want to say one other thing. Last night's game, a lot of times you guys asked about what's it mean for the Bills. I will say one thing that I believe the Chiefs went in, even into this game, with this aura of invincibility, right? It's they're going to figure out a way. They're going to win. I think the best thing the Eagles did for the Bills and the rest of the NFL is blew that up last night. Not that they're still not really good, and Mahomes is great, and they will get more players, and they may go a little nuclear and try to get speed and, who knows, get Tyreek Hill back. I don't know what they'll do. But it was we have never seen that out of this team. I know they had that Tampa game that was bad. It was more towards the beginning of their run. But in this case, they looked not just mortal, they looked awful. And I think that helps the whole league. I mean, when you're going to compete against them, they're still going to be really good, but that's gone now, that part. I mean, they could still win. They could win the whole thing again next year, but they got to earn it again. I think it's going to be a tough run for them to come back from a Super Bowl loss, 3 long runs, and a tougher division now to come back. They're going to need to make some big moves. But I think for the Bills, you're sitting there looking and going, yeah, they're not invincible, even though we've been close on them. They're not invincible. I think that's the way the league looks at it. So get better, go to work, and the Super Bowl's out there for the Bills if they make the right moves.
And just as an NFL fan, with the way the game started yesterday, Mike, I was nervous because I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. Nothing is going to change the ongoing narrative that the Chiefs get all the calls. And you kind of saw bad calls get swapped between the two teams early in the game. And all I could think to myself is, Sean McDermott's on the competition committee. Does the game look different next year in terms of how it's officiated? Do you think they start to lean in a little bit more this offseason to the technology that has to be made available to them?
Well, they should. I mean, it's there. And it's what we talked about in our podcast. I said, it's easy to just blame the refs. The game is super fast, and they can't see everything. A good example was, and I know a lot of Bills fans probably didn't mind seeing Mahomes get sort of punched in the face on that fumble, but that's clearly a penalty on the Eagles, right? I mean, they hit him right in the head, hit him in the face after he lost the ball. Why is that not reviewable? Why shouldn't that be it happened to Josh in the Ravens game. He got hit with a helmet to helmet, but they eventually fined the guy because, of course, the league loves to fine people. That should be reviewable. You should be able to use those, either a bad call to get reversed or one that they missed when they look at the replay. So, yeah, if I'm Sean McDermott, if I'm anybody, sometimes it'll benefit you, sometimes it'll hurt you, but we have the technology, right? Doesn't mean you're going to fix everything, but sometimes it's a little absurd that they don't use it better. So I hope that's the case. You're not putting the toothpaste back in the tube. Like, the cameras are everywhere. The angles are there. We've got other technology. Yes, I believe they should use it more. I do think that the refs after the early, and I thought that was a cheap call against the Chiefs too on the hit to the head. That was like, really? You're going to call this in the Super Bowl? Then they kind of stayed out of the way most of the time. And actually, the Eagles got probably, I think, a little more of the benefit, but the Chiefs were doing dumb stuff. So, and when it's a game like that, the refs can't really have too big of an impact. So I guess it didn't matter as much. But, yeah, technology is a good thing if it's used right, and they need to use it more.
13 Wham, Buffalo Plus's Mike Catalana. So now that we're in off-season mode, Mike, tell everybody what they can check out today.
Oh, yeah. We're still going strong with Buffalo Plus. In fact, we're going to be recording a video in a couple of minutes. We'll do our podcast every week. You guys mentioned the Combine. We'll be out there in Indy. We'll get another chance to talk to Bean and McDermott as it shifts full-on off-season mode. And you guys know, out there is when all the talking goes on. So, Myles Garrett's agent's going to be there. The Browns are going to be there. Everybody's going to be, not tampering, but talking. You know how that goes. So we'll be doing videos all the time. We'll talk to the Bears to see all the great moves they're going to make this offseason. They got their coach. They're ready to go. Yeah. Right? Maybe they get Myles Garrett. Why not?
The pride of Section 5 there, Ryan Poles, just running everything in Chicago.
Yeah. Real quick, too, Mike. Danger was trying to bait me on this. It's like he's baiting me last week if you said best 1 through 4 in baseball. Okay, it's the Dodgers. But if we go best 1 through 4 in terms of the lineup, in the NL East, Danger's trying to sell me Philadelphia. It's not even close. It's not. No. Not even close, Mike. Not even close.
I even conceded. I said, all right, Mets have the best 1-2 punch at the top with Lindor and with Soto, but the best 1 to 4 is still Philadelphia.
Yeah, of course it is. Oh my God, are you over the top already? It's February.
The Alonso signing triggered this. When Alonso came back, everybody got excited.
Yes, because they were ready to dump him last year, and they hated him, and now they love him again. The polar bear. Oh my God, seriously? Oh, wait till May. Wait till May when you're like, oh my God, I'm not panicking yet. Danger. I can hear you say it.
Mike, congrats on the.
Did we forget who won last year? Did we?
Won what? The Eagles just won the Super Bowl. I'm not saying something. What are you talking about?
Congrats on winning the Super Bowl, buddy. That's big for your team. I'm sure you're loving it as a fan, and
Yeah,
I also know you'd love to see the Bills in that game as well.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for that. 4 decades. I need it. I need Bills. I want the Bills in it. If it's Bills Eagles, that would be awesome. But maybe next year. We'll see.
Mike, enjoy your time, man. Talk again soon. Thanks for giving us some
All
time.
right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Mike.
You got it. There's Mike Kettle on 13 Web Sports Buffalo Plus. Check out his work. Of course, see him on the 13 Web Sportscast on 13 Web News. He's the Hall of Famer for a reason.
It's funny how, I'm seeing a lot of baseball things in my feed today, and the Red Wings just announced their 50-degree guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all right, like football season's over with. Let's look ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what makes Super Bowl Sunday always bittersweet for me. After the game is done, you're just soaking up every last drop, right? Every last bit of the NFL that you can for the season. Because as it goes away, and yeah, the offseason is fun, and we love the debate. And we love to talk about moves that we would make and trades and draft picks and blah blah blah. And nothing. And we have to wait until September for meaningful football. It's a long wait, man. It's a long off season.
Look, I love the flurry of activity when legal tampering begins. I love the NFL draft. I love trying to piece together the NFL schedule, but it just does not compare. Does not compare to the actual product.
That's right. We'll get to Jay Binkley joining us from Kansas City next hour, 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City.
If he picks up.
Our Odyssey Sports sister station, our nemesis, Jay Binkley, we'll ask him what happened, what went wrong. I mean, besides everything for the Kansas City Chiefs last night in New Orleans. We got more on the way next as well. Oh, look at this, Gino. The Athletic released their yearly player poll from anonymous NHL players and a few choice quotes for the Buffalo Sabres.
Oh, that can't be positive, I wouldn't think at this point. We talked a little bit about Dick Duran, and honestly, I think there's a few lessons here, in his early passing that we can kind of go over.
And can I get a verdict on the Chiron for the broadcast last night for Fox?
Who loved it? Nobody. You?
We'll get to that.
Oh, come
next
on.
The Fan Rochester.
WBEE HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions. The beatdown at Kansas City. Jamestown native Nick Sirianni on Super Bowl MVP, the quarterback Jalen Hurts.
Man, he was on top of it, and that's because of the way he prepares and his football IQ and everything that goes involved in that. He sees the game outstandingly.
What about the Kansas City side of things? We are scheduled to talk to Jay Binkley, 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City. Jay joins us later this hour. Multiple reports have the Buffalo Bills firing special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley. Smiley had been given a vote of confidence just last week by head coach Sean McDermott. Luka Doncic probable tonight. This would be his Laker debut. Los Angeles hosting Utah. The Amherst coming off a win Friday over Belleville. They're in Cleveland tomorrow night. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Philadelphia Eagles have won Super Bowl 59. They have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22. What a game. What a season. What a team. The greatest Eagles team in modern history. Eagles fans, savor it and rejoice.
If you whoop that ass up front, and that ass got whooped up front, the Philadelphia Eagles laid in and laid the wood to the Kansas City Chiefs on both sides of the ball.
Line play, that's it, in the trenches.
Mike Danger.
Call us when the Chiefs lose.
Yeah, we'll connect you with Binkley.
The Bills would have made this Super Bowl more interesting.
Gene Battaglia.
I am happy. We don't want any Chiefs arrogance, but you know what? If they get their comeuppance a little bit, I think most Bills fans would be okay with that.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, they were embarrassed. Embarrassed on the biggest stage of the game last night at the Super Bowl. We'll talk to Jay Binkley from 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City, our Odyssey Sports sister station. He stops by in about 20 minutes or so. Thanks for checking out the stream on YouTube, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, streaming on Twitch. You can get us in the free-to-download Odyssey app. We appreciate you listening and watching along, however you may be doing so.
Yeah, appreciate the contributions to the show. You can call us at 866-4FAN. You can tweet at us, post our handle on X, The Fan Rochester. Or you could, if you have our cell phone number, you can always text me as Steve Bradley, good friend of the show, texted me. This is a good nugget we can't look past. That Philly defensive line, of course, they're great. Why? The Section 5 guy coaching them, Clint Hurt, former Gates Chili Spartan. Of course, he was out in Seattle as the defensive coordinator up until 2022. Then the Eagles brought him over to coach the D-line.
Yeah, I think Big Dom actually deserves all the credit. Because he's yeah. Seeing Big Dom all over the field afterwards, just like holding court. You know, clearing a path for everybody.
Well, they're going to have the parade on Friday, which doesn't that kind of fit? You need to kind of have a few days. You need to prepare. Like heading into a long weekend, too, because a lot of people not working on Monday. What could go wrong, Danger?
Sure. Could be memorable. I think what was most shocking from the game wasn't the outcome, but I know this is the thing that got the eye of the casual football fans that were watching the game. My daughter came downstairs like, what's going on with the graphic? I'll just put it out there. I like the new Chyron for Fox that they unveiled last night at the Super Bowl. I think it's just great design. It's simple. It's clean. Big team names. Big score. No logos. Not like you need the logos. The colors say enough. You don't have any needless kind of like chrome. You have the prominent but not distracting timeouts remaining. Down in yards to go indicator on top of the team that has the ball. Easy, classic, legible, bold, timeless. What's not to like?
Too big. Honestly, it's too big. And like at some point, I don't need it covering up any of the action. Most of our monitors are big enough where you don't need it blown up that big. That being said, football's better than, say, baseball. Like baseball, there's no uniform when it comes to a score bug. Like the FS1 versus the TNT versus what you see on ESPN. Like football score bugs, I don't want to put any thought into it, Danger. Like, just give me the info.
Which is why I thought this did a good job. I thought that this simplifies it more than I've seen as far as how it's designed, more than I've seen from any other scorebook.
It's funny how it's always kind of rolled out at the Super Bowl, too,
Yeah.
Right? Like, that has to be the prerequisite.
And you'll see it next season.
Yeah.
Like, if they make adjustments to it, it'll be interesting to see if they make adjustments. I don't think they need to. I thought it was great as soon as I saw it.
You realize you're in the minority, but then again, like, you introduce something new, and most people are like,
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. I'm going to be first to say I hope they don't change any of it. I like it. I think it's clean. I think it's bold. I think it's easy to understand. Everything is legible. I don't think they could run with this for years because it feels like a timeless design. It's not like the logos are unnecessary. We know the teams. We know the colors. Everything works. I thought it was sharp.
I think the NFL would love the logos up there. You need to educate the young audience. You need to kind of get that logo and the passion and everything else there.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the field. It's in the middle of the field. It's on their helmets. You see it every play.
Former Bills and Bears head coach Dick Jauron, brief battle with cancer, age 74. And I think we talked 13-win Mike Catalana. I mean, you're not going to find anybody saying a bad word about Dick Jauron. It's fine to manage it with me. But I have some thoughts. Can we say this is a lesson in hiring practice? Who was the GM who hired Dick Jauron in Buffalo? It was actually Marv Levy. Marv Levy, the GM. We forget that age 79, Marv came back to be the GM. And Marv hired someone who probably he didn't realize his bias. It was a younger version of himself, essentially. Ivy League educated, soft-spoken, which is all fine. But when Marv came back to Buffalo, it worked. You know why? Because he got a Hall of Fame quarterback and other Hall of Famers like Bruce and Thurman and Andre. Dick Jauron came back and he had Trent Edwards as his quarterback. Like, ultimately, Danger, it was Marv Levy, the GM, who failed Dick Jauron.
Yeah.
Or you could say Ralph failed everybody by bringing back Marv. And then the lesson here, maybe I didn't pick this up. If I can draw an analogy to another team, hey, the Sabres were bring back Lindy. Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to go there right now because this was just released by The Athletic. Their yearly player poll from anonymous NHL players, and it kind of goes the way you would have expected if the question posed to these anonymous players, if you have a no-trade list, what's the first team on it? Buffalo got over 19.5% of the vote, 82 votes. Some of the quotes. The way it's going there, Buffalo, it's just been kind of mucky there forever, one player said. And for me right now in my career, I don't really need that. It's not going to help me. Another player, quote, high taxes. The organization hasn't been that strong recently. They haven't made the playoffs in like 14 years. In saying that, I have some friends there, and they love playing there. Another quote, all they do is lose. And then this question, which goes back to our original point. Which NHL coach would you least like to play for? 6.15% say Lindy Ruff. Few votes, 93. The quote, I just think he's too old. I don't think he understands the game anymore. That's what I hear from the guys that play for him, that he just doesn't know what's going on most of the time.
I'm not a fan of the anonymous quotes. I mean, I think it's we all get this from like your employer, like, oh, you can write or say whatever you want to. I think it's kind of cowardly. And also, like, yes, yeah, we have high taxes in New York, but those taxes are the same in Manhattan, and they're bigger in California, and they're way bigger in Canada, okay? And when you top in everything else. So, like, the bottom line here is dangerous. If you're losing, you're not going to be a destination. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that quote, that the thing that stuck with me, that last quote about Lindy, I don't think he understands the game anymore. That's what I hear from the guys that play for him. That's what I hear from the guys that play for him is the part that hurts me a little bit here. And I'll just say it. I don't think I'm saying anything new or breaking any ground here as far as like what the Sabres need. They need a new GM. They need a president of hockey operations. They need more veterans, and they need Seth Appert to be their head coach. I'm planting my flag.
Yeah.
The next move, if it's not Lindy, it's got to be Seth Appert.
Well, you're keeping Kevin Adams if you make that move, right?
I don't know that you are. I don't know. I mean, this is how I don't know how it works, right? Like I know that what we all know what they need. They need to move on from their GM. They need a president of hockey ops, but will they do it? Probably not. So if you move on from Kevin Adams, do you let the new GM interview Seth Appert, and does Seth Appert wow him with his knowledge of this roster? Because let's face it, it's his roster from when he was here for the most part. I don't know. But hearing that, what I hear from the guys that play for him, that he just doesn't know what's going on most of the time, it stings. And it goes to what we were talking about. Like, you bring in a guy that's just, he's not in it anymore.
This is what you heard out in New Jersey last year. And that's why Lindy got fired. Didn't make it through the last season in New Jersey, even though 2 years ago they made the playoffs. And then how did things kind of turn so poorly in New Jersey? They decided to move on. We're not used to this in Western New York. Most teams, NHL coaches, they're commodities. Boston gets off to a slow start. Bye. St. Louis, bye. Oh, we'll bring in somebody else and win a cup in the same season. Like, we seem to be married to head coaches with the Sabres for some reason. And I would ask you this question, Danger. I know the answer to this, or at least I think I do. What would be more likely? That, hey, Seth Appert, you're going to be elevated here, or they have the house cleaning altogether?
Oh, the house cleaning altogether.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's more likely. But again, it would to me, that would be another in a long line of organizational mistakes. It's not like you can be worse than what you've been. So why wouldn't you give the opportunity to the guy who came up with most of this roster? It makes no sense to me.
Well, I will say this about Seth, too. If you go back through his history, I thought he got a raw deal at RPI. Okay, RPI is a school where you think RIT certainly academics are a thing, but RPI, like, my gosh. And they weren't giving out scholarships there. That was $60,000 a year. And they ran him out. And I don't know all the circumstances. What I'm saying, though, is, hey, Seth could coach at the American League level. He can go run a D1 program. He can go be an assistant somewhere in the NHL. I think that he's going to have options if
for sure
they do have a house cleaning.
Yeah,
there.
for sure. But my first choice for bringing in a coach, if they were to move on from Lindy Ruff, he's there already. He's the guy that's familiar with a lot of this roster. And it can't get much worse. So why not try something different?
Well, hey, listen, I didn't think we would fall in love with the next head coach in the Amerks, but then Mike Leone comes along.
Yeah,
wait, you going to shoot the puck after the whistle? What are you doing?
We need the equivalent of Big Dom for the Rochester Americans. Somebody that could, like, shadow Leone. Like, I mean, Vinny is good. Vinny Prospel is good. Pacer is good. But, we need like a Dom. We need like a Big Dom on the bench. Just, hey, you want some of this? No, you don't.
No, you don't touch a goaltender.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
That's right.
We'll be tomorrow. I got to make sure he can come on. That's a Tuesday game tomorrow. Amerks.
All right, they're in Cleveland.
Yeah, tomorrow. New wrinkle for the intro of the Super Bowl, or maybe it's not. I just happened to be watching this last night. I don't recall the celebrity fan doing the intro right at the beginning.
I feel like every year each team has an intro. What I don't know when they got away from actually introducing the starters. Like, I feel like we didn't meet the starters like you normally would meet.
Normally,
right?
You would have like the big voice guy and everything, and this was just, hey, and I had to ask the executive producer, I'm like, who is this guy?
Sean Hamm.
Yeah, that's Don Draper from Mad Men. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess he's a Chiefs fan. And the Eagles, of course, if you saw Silver Linings Playbook, Bradley Cooper's out there. He's in his Eagle gear, and look, we've been over this. Bills Mafia. You don't exactly have Bradley Cooper or any A-listers, do we?
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
You would have Berman out there, maybe?
I wouldn't, but I don't. That's the first name that comes to mind. That or Bill Fichtner.
Yeah.
He's that guy in every movie. He's that guy in every movie.
That would be more for Bill Fichtner.
Yeah. Well, Bill Fichtner, isn't that just kind of like what the Bills are? Like, they're just those guys. They're just a bunch of guys. But Bill Fichtner, big Bills fan, SUNY Brockport grad, and he's just that guy in every movie that you've seen. When you see his picture, you'll be like, oh, yeah, I know who that guy is. He's just that guy. Who's more of a celebrity? You're right. I mean, is it Russert?
Yeah, Wolf Blitzer. I know he's a Bills fan. The guy from the Goo Goo Dolls, maybe?
Yeah, Goo Goo Dolls aren't really pumping them out the way they did in the late 90s there. So I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Biggest Bills celebrity.
I mean, Kyle Brandt.
No,
you can't. You got to go Hollywood here.
Right, because Kyle Brandt he's actually a Bears guy. He doesn't talk about it as much because he kind of adopts whatever team is happening, right? Like he's the hype man for whatever team he wants to be a hype man for, and he does it really, really well.
Michael Murray.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the guy. I think he was in Gilmore Girls. Was he in Gilmore Girls? Gilmore Girls. By the way, if you want to know how Taylor Swift's persona was crafted in a lab, watch a few episodes of Gilmore Girls and tell me that I was forced to watch a few of these episodes with my daughters. They went in through a Gilmore Girls phase, and I'm like, oh my God, the main character is Taylor Swift. Can't keep a guy, always upset, pouty, kind of aloof, but charming, cute. This is where Taylor Swift came from. She originated from this character, except she can sing, sort of, and dance, sort of, and kind of play, sort of.
What about Haley? She'd be too involved in it, right?
Well, Haley's now becoming the biggest name celebrity aligned with the Buffalo Bills, but I don't know that you want your quarterback's future wife or wife, if they do get to the Super Bowl, as your hype person.
No.
That would be bad. I mean, imagine if it was Brittany Mahomes out there. Or imagine if it was Taylor Swift and not John Hamm. Would you be? I mean, Taylor Swift's a bigger name celebrity, but that's not happening. It's got to be John Hamm.
How many people are like, wait, why don't we put Taylor down there? Yeah. I couldn't have been the only one who like, who's John Hamm again?
No, I know. I recognize him right away. He's a Midwest guy, and so I think he's a Cardinals fan in baseball, and I'm fairly certain he's been a Chiefs fan a long time.
The thing, too, is like, okay, now here's time, and who would be the guy I'm thinking, oh, gosh, they're going to put Stallone out there. No, it wasn't Stallone. Bradley Cooper.
No, I called Bradley Cooper. Yeah. I'm like, if Hamm is doing the Chiefs, it'll be Bradley Cooper for the Eagles. And boom, there is Bradley Cooper. I'm like, okay, yeah, I got that one right. But one of the only things I got right.
Okay, so if the Bears make it next year, and don't laugh, they have a quarterback that they put Carmi out there. Come on, Danger. What do they do?
Hey. No, it's probably Bill Murray. I mean, Bill Murray. Bill Murray
Miller,
or Ashton Kutcher, Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn would be a lock. Vince Vaughn, I think, would be the lock if the Bears were to do it. It's a fun exercise to go through. The guys that are just outspoken for their NFL teams. Guys like Jay Binkley from 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City. We welcome Jay into the sports bar next. What happened? What happened?
What kind of Binkley do we get? Do we get a big picture? We'll be back.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get, aren't we?
Get ready for it. Jay Binkley returns to the sports bar next on The Fan.
You're listening to Sports Update.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl MVP.
It's never been about anyone else. It's just been about the journey of embracing everything and trying to grow and be the best that I can be, you know. And so to be able to bring a championship back to Philadelphia means everything.
No points for Kansas City in the first half. What happened? Jay Binkley, 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City, joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Multiple reports have the Buffalo Bills firing special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley. It was just at the season-ending press conference that head coach Sean McDermott said that Smiley would be back. The Amerks play a rare Tuesday night game tomorrow night. They're in Cleveland. Luka Doncic probable tonight. This would be his Laker debut. Los Angeles hosting Utah. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Couldn't get it going offensively. I mean, they just got after us on all three phases, and then on top of that, you know, turnovers, penalties, playing behind the sticks on offense is just drop passes, not taking advantage of, you know, the play call and executing. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. You don't lose like that without everything going bad. So just couldn't find that spark, couldn't find that momentum.
Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce post-game as the Chiefs fall to the Philadelphia Eagles and fall short of their bid to three-peat as Super Bowl champions as we welcome in Jay Binkley from our Odyssey Sports sister station 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City. Jay, you know, Travis kind of laid it out there. There's not one specific thing. I think we expected a tight game. I don't know that anybody predicted that sort of dominating performance against your Kansas City Chiefs. So what happened?
Well, pitchers and catchers report the 12th and the 17th. So the Royals report and surprise Arizona 2 days on the 12th, all right? That's when the pitchers and catchers and full squad on the 17th as we look forward to another year of baseball.
Jay, I can I'm going to show a little empathy here for you, Jay, because to me, that looked like Super Bowl 26, 27, 28. I'm that old. You're that old. Yeah. What happened to the coaching staff? I thought, okay, they're down here, but that's the part that kind of would stick out to me. Where were the adjustments from Andy Reid and his staff?
There wasn't any, and that was the problem. It was bad. I mean, they did a good job on Saquon Barkley. They held him to 2.3 yards a carry, but unfortunately they let the rest of the offense kind of go, and Philadelphia dominated time of possession. They played very good defensively, very, very, very good defensively. They took advantage of the Chiefs' line. The Chiefs have so much work to do with that offensive line. This reminds me of the 31-9 Tampa Super Bowl. This was after the Chiefs beat the 49ers. They go back to the Super Bowl. They were hammered by Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. It was right during COVID and all that. They get beat 31-9, and the offensive line was torn up, and it was about Mahomes running for his life. Well, the next year, they didn't quite make it to the Super Bowl. They lost an AFC title game to the Bengals, so there was a year without going to the Super Bowl. And then they went back-to-back. Then they fixed their offensive line, and they went back-to-back. So they've got some work to do. They got $11 million in cap space, a lot of free agents, and they have a lot of work to do. But make no mistake about it, I talked about it yesterday on an extended pregame, that I felt going into it that people are kind of sleeping on Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. I was like, this is their second Super Bowl in 3 years. I watched a lot of Jalen Hurts at Alabama and Oklahoma, and this guy was 26-2 at Alabama. This guy's good, man. This guy's good. He had a great game against the Chiefs the first time. And I said, I think Monday, if they do beat the Chiefs, people are going to look at Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni completely different, however you've looked at them. But they got their tails kicked. I mean, there's no other way to put it. The Chiefs looked tired. There wasn't a lot of energy out there from the team. The offensive line got completely worked. The experiment of moving the guard out the tackle failed miserably for the Kansas City Chiefs. But, it just wasn't good all the way around. Offensively, that's about as bad as I've ever seen them play offensively, and that includes the Raiders on Christmas Day a year ago.
And, Jay, when you mentioned Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, I wonder if Jalen Hurts provided some sort of a template for teams who have mobile quarterbacks, teams like the Bills, 72 rushing yards. He gets the touchdown with the tush-push. He exploits the gaps in the Chiefs' defensive schemes. I mean, what was different about Hurts' performance against that Steve Spagnuolo defense that we've seen handle teams like the Eagles, handle teams like the Bills, handle teams with quarterbacks who are mobile.
Well, Jalen Hurts tore the Chiefs up the Super Bowl in 57. Super Bowl 57. The Chiefs ended up winning the game, but Jalen Hurts was tough on the ground. They did that tush push. He threw for over 300 yards. Jalen Hurts would have been the MVP of the Super Bowl had the Chiefs not ended up winning that game. But he was great. I mean, he did have a scoop and score pick six that went against him, and the Chiefs defense got it. So that was one big mistake that he made. But he's right there. I mean, the guy's just a winner. I mean, again, some of the stats aren't going to be flashy or anything. It reminds me of Mahomes a lot. That, you know, the stats sometimes aren't going to blow you away, but he finds a way to win. And I was telling people yesterday, I was like, hey, man, Nick Sirianni has a better winning percentage. He's over any head coach in the NFL right now. He's a 70% clip. So, you know, Nick Sirianni, say what people say what they want about him in Philadelphia. They're melting down about him earlier in the season, but all the guy does is win.
We're talking to Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan in Kansas City. Okay, $11 million in cap space, Jay, and well, you've got some free agents here. Certainly, you got Justin Reed in the back end. You got a lot of wide receivers there, including Hollywood Brown. Is there anybody that, boy, this is the guy I really need them to sign?
Trey Smith on the offensive line would be one of the guys. He made the Pro Bowl this year. He's actually done a good job. The interior part of the offensive line is actually good. Creed Humphrey's an All-Pro, and Trey Smith's good. And Joe Tooney is an All-Pro as well. So, but he had to play tackle, not guard, which you switch positions. He was short-armed. Andy Reid likes 34.25-inch arms. It made a difference. It made a difference in that game. He had 32.25. He's a guard for a reason, Joe Tooney, but he was out there playing tackle. But Justin Reed, all these guys, they could move on. They drafted Jaden Hicks this year. A lot of people thought he was the best safety in the draft, including like Dane Brugler last year on his watch list. And some had him as the 39th best prospect overall. But the Chiefs drafted him. He'll be ready to go. As far as wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins wasn't real effective for the Chiefs down the stretch. The one good news is Rashee Rice is coming back.
Yeah.
Like they get Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy has turned into a weapon. Mm-hmm. I mean, that guy has turned into a down the field. The Chiefs got to get back to throwing the ball down the field. That's when they have success, when they throw it deep. Who knows about Hollywood Brown? I thought he was going to be a one-year deal for the Chiefs. That was it. Brett Veach, general manager, basically said that same thing before the season even started, said, well, I'll have Hollywood Brown for a year. But then he was hurt most of the year. So I thought maybe his market had come down quite a bit, and maybe the Chiefs could re-sign him. Do I think the Chiefs could still draft a wide receiver? Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll definitely be in the market to draft a running back. But they should still be, you know, they got to go back to the drawing board, man. They got to resurface some things. I mean, teams throughout the years have figured them out and slowed them down, and they've had to go back to the drawing board and try something different. But you know, last night was a wake-up call because, you know, they slowed Barkley down, but unfortunately everything else for the Eagles worked.
Jay, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about a couple of the positions that you discussed there. One was the backfield. I mean, you only had 49 rushing yards on 11 attempts. Terrible, right? But I mean, the score kind of dictated that you abandoned the run game. But we noticed this before we saw the Chiefs in the championship game. But Pacheco hasn't been right since returning from that injury. Do you have faith that you get Isaiah Pacheco back looking like Isaiah Pacheco at the beginning of the season, or is this the kind of injury that could linger? And in a draft where you have as many running backs as you do you just go out there and get another running back to add to that backfield and kind of?
Well, yeah, they got him in the 7th round. I mean, he was a 7th round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I was warning people, you know, before they played the Bills, you know, I was doing, you know, the different radio hits with our, you know, sister station. I think I even told you guys, I was like, man, don't be counting a lot on Pacheco. Look for Kareem Hunt. Look for Kareem Hunt to get the bulk of the work, especially down near the goal line on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. Look for Kareem Hunt to get the ball. But again, when that score was 17-0, there was no way of going back to that running game. The Eagles did a fantastic job. I mean, they only had 2 more sacks than the Chiefs last season, but they didn't blitz. That was the thing. And Patrick Mahomes had always been so good against Vic Fangio. He was 8-0 against Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator and or head coach in his career, 8-0. But now he's 8-1. So things do change for the team. I mean, it's a disappointment. I think every time they go to I remember after the Tampa Super Bowl, they were asked, hey, is season success or not going to the Super Bowl? And they had the mindset, no, they didn't win the whole thing. So no, they're angry about it. They'll go back to that drawing board because Nick Sirianni, he outcoached the Chiefs yesterday. You don't see that a whole lot, but he did.
There was one play last night, Jay, that kind of like, I'm wondering. You had Mahomes dropping back, and it's just a short pass to Kelsey. But Mahomes, he doesn't let it go the way he normally would. He puts it down in a way. But Kelsey, maybe a younger Kelsey, actually comes up with it, and the pass is incomplete. And it just, to me, looked like, all right, maybe this is it for Travis Kelsey. What's your gut telling you here? Because, if he walked away right now, he's one of the best tight ends of all time. What more could he be gained? So your thoughts here on, if he's going to hang it up?
Man, I don't know. That's the big mystery. I mean, he says, hey, I could go a couple more years or something like that. And had the Chiefs won, I think he would have really wanted to go for that for a four-peat. I don't think he would want to walk away right in the middle of this, although we've seen other players, walk away. Elway, man, we've seen other guys win a Super Bowl and walk away. His brother, he might have walked away, a year too soon. The Eagles were beaten by the Buccaneers in the playoffs last year, and his brother went ahead and retired. Had he stayed, he wins another ring. I don't know. I mean, that's the big mystery. I mean, I think the Chiefs, that's one of the positions I think they definitely need to address. I mean, they keep getting guys in the mid-rounds and stuff for tight end, but they've got to address there's so many things to address, and tight end is one of them for Travis Kelce's replacement. But, I don't know which direction he's going to go. The only thing I know for sure is that Mahomes is coming back and a couple of linemen and Chris Jones on defense, and the rest of it, who knows?
How do you look at the rest of the division now? I mean, the AFC West last year, we thought, all right, it's going to be more competitive. You've got a Harbaugh in there now. Sean Payton is coming up. And now you add another Super Bowl winning coach in Pete Carroll here. Looking ahead to the 2025 season in the AFC West, is it going to be as seamless and easy as it's been for the Kansas City Chiefs? Or do you think we could see some surprises from these teams, given what we saw on Sunday?
I do. This year was much easier than I thought it was. I thought it was going to be a struggle down the stretch, but it wasn't. As the Chiefs wrapped things up on Christmas Day. Last year, the year before that, they were just 9-6 on Christmas. They still had a lot of work to do. And Justin Herbert hadn't been great in the playoffs. I do like Bo Nix and what he can do, but Buffalo, completely dismantled what he could do in the postseason. And the Raiders, they're still searching for that guy. They're still searching for that quarterback. I do think Pete Carroll can make a difference, but they're still searching for that guy. Do I think they go out and get that guy? Maybe. Do they go out and overspend on a quarterback? Because everybody's looking for that quarterback. In this year's NFL draft, there's not a lot. There's maybe two that I think you would consider in the first round. I don't see them kind of as game changers. So which direction are they going to go? They're going to overpay for, Sam Darnold, who didn't play well down the stretch. They're going to overpay for a guy like that because there is a market there, because there's nobody else out there in the NFL draft. So a lot of these journeyman quarterbacks are going to be getting banked to play. But this year I thought was tougher because 3 AFC West teams made the playoffs, and that hasn't happened before. But, yeah, there's great coaches in this division. Patrick Mahomes has still only lost one game in the division on the road. So that still bodes well for the Chiefs, because they have done very, very well against the AFC West when everybody's played. But, no, everybody, they're coming back to the pack. It's still going to be a battle. Baltimore's not going anywhere. Buffalo's not going anywhere. Someone else will step up. I thought maybe the Steelers would, but they kind of fell off down the stretch. We've been waiting on Miami. They did not take that step forward this year. Houston looked much different than they did the year before. I thought they were saltier and more dangerous the year before than the second year of C.J. Stroud this year. So it might be a lot of the same cast and characters next year.
Jay, I have my bib on. I have my utensils kind of pointed up. We are hungry and salivating for the idea of a Myles Garrett in Buffalo. That is what we need. And my gosh, the question here is, okay, if he doesn't go to Buffalo, is there chatter about the Chiefs here?
There would always be. He's listed as one of the teams that would take him. But the Chiefs, as good as it sounds, it would have to be some kind of trade. And they have done it in the past. They've done it with Frank Clark. They've done it with others. They have made trades for guys. But Myles Garrett's a different deal, and there's so many things this team needs. You know, if Kelsey walks away, they're going to need tight end help. They got to work on this offensive line. There's some extensions guys need. Sure, Mahomes can restructure his contract again. That could free up some money, but they've been going back to that a lot. And other quarterbacks have passed him now in money per year. So we'll see what that goes. But, yeah, I mean, there might be some interest in Myles Garrett. I firmly believe the Chiefs will be interested in wide receivers. Now, whether that's Cooper Kupp, and they can kind of a move with the Rams to bring in Cooper Kupp because the Chiefs have done business with them in the past. Could it be just somebody like that, not somebody completely flashy? Myles Garrett would be great here. I just don't know if they would have the money or resources to bring him in here.
Let's talk about that for a second. Wide receivers, you mentioned Cooper Kupp. I think he's getting cut. And the team that wants him at the rate that they want him at will get him.
Yeah.
What about, we were just talking about it last hour, what about Tyreek Hill returning to Kansas City?
I mean, I'm sure it'd be welcome. He kind of wants to. We'll see what it goes. They gave up a lot in draft compensation to bring him in there. So we'll see if that's the situation. But the Chiefs have got to start going downfield more. I mean, that was the whole deal in training camp. I mean, it was a bomb every day to Xavier Worthy down the field and Hollywood Brown. But then Hollywood Brown was hurt all year. Rasheed Rice was starting to come into his own before the injury, and that will make a big difference for this football team. He gets a lot of the catches underneath. He does a lot of the things Kelsey did, to be honest with you. And Rasheed Rice kind of does that kind of stuff for the Chiefs. Of course, that suspension still looming in the future, probably for him. It'll happen, but they've got to get more explosive. They got to get down the field. I mean, there's a reason why Mahomes was so good in domes. He was 11-0 in domes, regular season and playoffs before that game. 26 touchdowns, 3 picks. Air it out. I mean, that's the one thing. But of course, you got to have protection to air it out. You can't draw back there and have somebody in your lap trying to make a tackle on you before you throw it. But they need to get back to who and what they were.
Jay, we didn't talk to you after the AFC Championship game, and I think a lot of people in Western Europe were just kind of stunned that this was our year and it didn't happen. But now as we all kind of move on, what would you say about Buffalo? What, in your words, the reasons why the Bills couldn't get past Kansas City? I'm not going to accept, it's Patrick Mahomes' magic. There were other things happening in that game. Just want to hear it from your side here.
I think when they get a few more pieces on offense, some different pass catchers, to be honest with you, and maybe not be as predictable when it comes to Josh Allen and going left when he does the tush push and quarterback sneaks. But yeah, Buffalo's right there. You saw how Buffalo beat the Chiefs in the regular season. I mean, Buffalo's not going anywhere. They're going to be adding pieces. They'll get better defensively, and especially in the secondary. I've liked Josh Allen all year. I told you at the beginning of the year or middle of the year, I was like, man, Josh Allen's the MVP, and I never wavered from that he was going to win the MVP. But I think a lot of the things are in place, and I think the best thing about Buffalo is that they found a way to win. I mean, there was good players, James Cook. I mean, there's good players on that team, but it's not, that team's not loaded with Pro Bowl players, in skill positions. Like the Chiefs. I mean, it's very similar, but what they have is they have the quarterback and they've got the head coach doing damage, but I don't see Buffalo going anywhere. I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC next year.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a lot of fun. The thing that sucks is we got to wait until September for us to get meaningful football back again. Number one checklist here, you get to the combine, you do your scouting. You're saying when the draft hits in April here, the Chiefs, they're on the clock. They're looking at the end of the first round at a wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, it could be the same situation as last year, and I'll be honest with you, and I remind people all the time because I really want a wide receiver from the get-go. That's what we really concentrated on our draft podcast. Get a wide receiver. And, everybody wanted linemen and stuff like this. You're not getting a lineman at 31. You're not getting a left tackle. You're just not. And you're getting a guy that may have played left tackle in college, but he's going to be moved to guard, or he's going to be moved over to right tackle. We see that all the time, guys drafted in the late 20s, early 30s, that are, quote, left tackles that get moved right over to the right side. I mean, the Chiefs got Kingsley Suamataia in the second round, and everybody was thinking the Chiefs to take him in the first round. And he's probably going to be moved over to guard or whatever. He couldn't even really get on the field for the Chiefs this year, and Worthy proved to be the guy. I mean, he was the guy that everybody said, oh, he's just a speed guy. But I have to remind people, At Texas, he led the Longhorns in catches and yards in 3 straight years. Both those categories, he led in both those years. In 2 of the 3 years, he led in receiving touchdowns. So he was more than a vertical route, more than just a 9-guy route. He did a lot of different things, and I think he's going to do some good things with this offense. But they've got to go back to that well. Sitting there at 31, the good tight ends, maybe taken, to be honest with you. Colston Loveland's going to be gone, and Tyler Warren is going to be gone. Could they sit there and get a defensive lineman like Derek Howard? Could he be a guy? Because defensive line is something they're probably going to have to address. So I could see the Chiefs going, I think you can get better quality at wide receiver or defensive line in the first round. Unless you're going to move down. If you're going to move down to at least top 15, that's when you get your tackle. But unless you're, going to move down, you gotta stay put and maybe hit free agency route or like swing that trade like they did Orlando Brown a few years ago. An existing player, that's what they got to do because it's tough. It's really tough to get that. Guards, stuff like that, you can probably draft them then. Mid-round, the Chiefs have got to address the running game. I think they can go a lot higher, 3rd or 4th round, or they got 2 third-round picks, so maybe a 3rd-round pick on a running back because the running back class is absolutely loaded this year in the NFL draft. There's going to be a lot of people pretty happy about the quality of running backs. I think the wide receivers are pretty good too. But, again, for the real difference makers, you got to move up.
Here's one thing I hope is different this year, Jay, and I'm going to do like a little reenactment or what should happen. Ready? Ring, ring. Hello, Bill's War Room. Yes, hi, this is Brett Veach, general manager.
Yeah.
Click. Click.
Yeah.
Hang up.
You have to. He just needs to say, hey, man, I'm sorry, but this is a Wendy's, and we're not going to do business with you, Kansas City. We're not, and they shouldn't. I know Coleman's a good player and all that, but Worthy, he really helps the Chiefs offense. So that was, that was.
I wanted Worthy to fail so badly. I'm thinking, no, he can't run routes. Oh, look, he's standing out of bounds in this play. Ha, 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 ha. And, okay, it was garbage time, but that was a little reminder. 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, Jay. He's going to be just fine for your team moving forward.
No, I think he is, but I think they still have to hit wide receiver. Now, again, if they are able to bring in a Cooper Kupp at his age, the injuries have to be a concern. But going downfield, the Chiefs have got to do that. And the Hollywood Brown, this was going to be a different team. This was going to be going back to airing it out. It's what they were going to do with Worthy and Hollywood Brown, on the outside, Rashee Rice working in the middle of the field. This was going to be a lot more potent offense, but things change when Rice gets hurt and Hollywood Brown was hurt in the first play of the preseason. And, things changed drastically for what this team was, and they just had to kind of go find a way to win, and it caught up to them. It caught up to them. There's only so many things you can do to scheme, and there's only so many things your quarterback can do before a game like Philadelphia happened. But they were just all over Kansas City from the beginning. That was just that was over from the start.
So, Jay, what's next for you at 96.5 The Fan in Kansas City? If I'm not mistaken, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of draft content coming our way from your feed.
Yeah, it's on now. I love talking NFL draft, my favorite thing to talk about. And we started a show back when the draft was going to be in Kansas City, and we've kept it going ever since then. So the last couple of years, we've been talking NFL draft. So going to be a lot of that. I'm sure I'll dabble with the Royals a little bit here and there, but it's going to be a lot of NFL draft. I'm just pissed the season's done. That's the one thing when the Super Bowl's done. It's like at least we got college football all the way to the 20th of January. But then once the Super Bowl, it's like lean, man. It's lean. You get bored. I remember sitting there in the off week going, what the hell am I going to do on Saturday or Sunday? I'm bored, literally bored. So I want football to start back up. I can't wait.
Jay, thank you. We'll do this again. Who knows where they'll put that's got to be like a Sunday night game, right? This year, Kansas City coming to Buffalo in the season.
I guess, guys. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk again, and then hopefully in the postseason we can meet again. It's been fun. I had a lot of fun with the Buffalo fans that came to Kansas City. There's 2 places that they really hit when they came in Kansas City. There was Al's Bar and Grill, and that's where a lot of the TV or some TV stations were doing live hits from, going back to Buffalo. But then they kind of took over this Taps on Main, like downtown in Kansas City. It's where a lot of the Buffalo Bills fans went. But it was fun. They were fun to drink with and hang out. I remember going up to the bar and seeing all the New York license plates and everything, and everybody got along. I mean, it was great. Chiefs fans, Bills fans. It was a great time.
It's good stuff, man. And thanks for making time for us as you do every season when we want to talk about the Bills' chief rival, and we look at the Chiefs, and we hope that there's a day where we can get over that Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid hump to take that next level.
It's tough, guys. It's tough, and the one thing about it is, Mahomes still has made the Super Bowl in 71% of the seasons starting. I mean, that's, even though he lost 71% of the time, he's been in 5 of the last 6. He's been a starter for 7 years and been in 5 Super Bowls. So he's always going to be there when 71%. Andy Reid's gone to the title game 46% of the games that he's coached. That's insane.
That's unbelievable. Jay, appreciate the time, bud. Let's do this again soon.
All right, guys.
There's
Thanks,
Jay
They got
Binkley.
humbled yesterday. Take care.
You got it. Jay Binkley, 96.5, The Fan, in Kansas City, our Odyssey Sports sister station. They're a little bit into some of the misfortunes there of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Bills pick 30th. Kansas City now at 31. Yeah, no.
Don't pick up the phone.
No, don't pick up.
It's Brett Veach. No.
Well, listen. You're not going to take your guy. We'll offer you a third. Why? Yeah, no.
Happy hour is next. Lots to unpack from last night's Super Bowl. Some Bills news as well. I keep calling it a reversal of course. I don't know that it was a reversal of course. I think Catalana is right that this maybe was the plan all along, but at the time that Sean McDermott said what he said at the end of the season, maybe there were some other things that needed to unfold before you could officially go forward with this move. We've got a round of shots, and we have time for your calls if you want to join us in the 5 o'clock hour. That number is 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to the The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
The Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions. Jamestown native Nick Sirianni and Super Bowl MVP quarterback Jalen Hurts.
Man, he was on top of it, and that's because of the way he prepares and his football IQ and everything that goes involved in that. He sees the game outstandingly.
Multiple reports have the Buffalo Bills firing special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley. The Amerks play a rare Tuesday night game tomorrow night in Cleveland. Amerks coming off the one win over the weekend, their only game. That was Friday night against Belleville. Luka Doncic probable tonight. This would be his Laker debut. Los Angeles hosting Utah. The RIT Tigers back in action coming up Friday and Saturday as American International comes to the Gene Policini Center. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Philadelphia Eagles have won Super Bowl 59. They have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22. What a game. What a season. What a team. The greatest Eagles team in modern history. Eagles fans, savor it and rejoice.
If you whoop that ass up front, and that ass got whooped up front, the Philadelphia Eagles laid in and laid the wood to the Kansas City Chiefs on both sides of the ball.
Line play, that's it. In the trenches.
Mike Danger.
Call us when the Chiefs lose.
Yeah, we'll connect you with Bankley.
The Bills would have made this Super Bowl more interesting.
Gene Battaglia.
I am happy. We don't want any Chiefs arrogance, but you know what? If they get their comeuppance a little bit, I think most Bills fans would be okay with that.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
It is happy hour in the sports bar. We thank you for listening at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Also watching on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, where you can like, subscribe, and comment. We love engaging with you there and appreciate you sharing the show and telling a friend. Gino pointing out to me right before we go on the air, because you're a motivational kind of guy. You're trying to get my spirits up. Take a look out the window and peek. Look, we've still got daylight after 5 o'clock.
How long have we been doing this? It doesn't affect me. Maybe that's because I've lived here my whole life. For you, the seasonal disorder or whatever it is, when it comes to sunshine
maybe a little touch.
And gray skies,
maybe a little touch.
I'm like, hey, you know what? For everybody driving home right now, that orb in the sky is actually peeking out right now.
It's not the cold that bothers me, because like you, I've lived in the cold my whole life, growing up in Minnesota. Cold different there than cold here, but it is the gray. It is the constant, the dark and the gray. And I felt like you on Saturday as I was driving home. My daughter had her winter formal out there in Webster, and we're driving back to the west side of town, and the snow is coming down, and the roads. I mean, they do a great job. For what they look like on Saturday night versus what they look like Sunday morning. I know they work all night long. The DOT guys work all night long to get those roads cleaned up. But man, Saturday night was treacherous, and some of y'all forgot how to drive in the snow, and that's on the heels of me biting it, doing my driveway on Friday, taking a header and falling on my elbow. My elbow's all bruised up. I'm still a little sore from it, Gino.
Can you sue yourself?
Well, yeah, I fell down the driveway. It was very icy, and you can't find salt anywhere. So I'm going to sue Walmart. I'm going to sue Lowe's. I'm going to sue the gas station. I'm going to sue Wegman, Danny Wegman. I'm suing everybody. I just wanted to put some salt down to melt the ice because I fell on my ass pipe. Oh, I'm rubbing it right now. It's sore. Yeah, so the added daylight, Gino,
it works.
I don't know how many minutes per day we're gaining now. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3 minutes of extra daylight.
What you should watch tonight for Fear Danger, because you were out in the elements Saturday driving in the snow. And if you don't watch the 13 Farm News tonight, me, Count Hatsko, your life will be in peril.
I've got to travel the next couple of days. I'm not here tomorrow. I'm not here Wednesday. Are you telling me that there's more weather coming our way that I'm going to have a hard time?
Yeah, my apologies. Is terrible take, Timmy. We'll be sitting in the sports bar tomorrow, Danger.
Okay, very good.
So, yes, we the show must go on. Hey, here's a question I have for you. Ready? Okay, so Nick Sirianni wins the Super Bowl. You go back to the end of last year, it's a legit conversation, not just in Philadelphia, everywhere. That was a team that fell apart at the end of the season. They were lifeless. They changed their coordinators. Look where they are, okay? But the question is, Danger, have you ever had a head coach where we're calling into question, should this guy get fired, and then the very next year he wins a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I can't. We've had I'm going over the list, like guys that are like, this guy isn't all that. Sirianni, Doug Peterson, all right?
Stop right there, because I think those two guys, and I think this kind of answers the question. I think it's a symptom of being in Philadelphia. I think if you're in Philadelphia, the expectation is this guy's good, he's got it, he's going to get us a championship, or he's a clown, he's got to go. And they'll be able to turn the corner on you pretty quickly. They'll flip the script on you very quickly. See Doug Peterson.
Well, I will say this, that is there a better GM, not just in the NFL, in sports?
Roseman's the best.
Like, not only does he know how to draft, but when there's blood in the water, okay, you don't want to pay A.J. Brown? Okay, we'll give you our first-round pick.
Right.
Or Saquon.
Or think about this as well, because the path that the Eagles took and the messaging that they had here kind of after the game seems very similar to kind of the underdog role that they embraced when they won their championship against the Patriots. No one likes us. We don't care. Remember Jason Kelsey at the parade? If I don't get my breakfast, if I don't eat breakfast, I'm pissed off. Like they embrace that so much with Doug Peterson as their head coach. It almost feels like Roseman maybe said that to Sirianni, like, hey, get these guys pissed. Get these guys to embrace the underdog mentality. The idea that we're from Philly, nobody likes us, and we don't care. We're going to beat the crap out of you.
The thing about that first playoff Super Bowl run was, okay, you had Nick Foles. You were the number one seed. Well, how could you be the underdog? They legitimately were the underdog in the divisional round against Atlanta, if you remember. Number one seed, but because you don't have Carson Wentz, you have Nick Foles, nobody believed in you, and that kind of bought into it. I think if you were Philadelphia, one thing they did key on, the fact that the Chiefs marketing department making it known they struck a deal with Pat Riley before the game.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's one thing to go do that. But you got to keep that quiet. You can't be putting that out there.
I also think, though, that Sirianni, you say what you want to about him as a head coach and his ability or inability to scheme up offense or defense. I think he knows how to get these guys far. Even last night in the game, there was a moment in the game, I don't know if you caught this, that A.J. Brown came to the sideline, and it looked like they were jawing. Like Sirianni was jawing with A.J. Brown. It's like, I get it. You're a star wide receiver. You might be one of our better players on offense. I don't care. Sirianni getting in his grill tells me, like, he's in it. He's just as fired up and high energy as any of the players are that are out on the field. I kind of like that about him. For as much as I want to clown on Sirianni, and we, when he was hired, we called him Section 5 Sirianni, and all the talk of we're going to water the flowers and water your earth and make things grow, and that's what we're going to. He's a different cat now.
Let's see if I can remember this. Perfect preparation equals talent takeover. Less thinking equals talent takeover.
All right.
Yeah, like, oh, okay, You sound like a high school coach.
Right, but he actually, I mean, you can't say anything bad about him now. He's got a Super Bowl, man. And you could say, yeah, he's got really good coordinators. He absolutely does. But again, that goes to the GM. That goes to Howie Roseman. I think, putting this team with a roster in a position where you can get a Vic Fangio away from it. How do you feel for the Dolphins? You had Fangio for one season, and he bolts. Goes to Philadelphia. He's like, I'm done. It's good.
Well, what does it say about McDaniel? What does it say? Right. It tells you a lot about the situation in Miami.
Right. Kellen Moore gets let go by the Cowboys. He's not going to be in Philadelphia next year. He'll be the next Saints head coach, by the way.
Okay, so, and there was like some quote from Sirianni saying, run it back.
Yeah.
What if Moore's like, I'm good. What if that doesn't happen? What if we get to like mid-February? When you get to the combine, they're still looking for a coach.
I'm worried about Kellen Moore in New Orleans.
You're just collecting a paycheck there.
Yeah.
You don't have anything.
But Kellen Moore also, is there a guy coaching in the NFL that looks like more of a mouth breather than Kellen Moore? Kellen Moore is the biggest mouth breather in all of sports.
Define like a mouth breather.
He's always got his mouth open, always kind of like agape. Just, like I wonder if he makes that noise as he's breathing. His mouth is always open. Not really saying anything. Just can't keep his mouth closed. I'm worried about him in New Orleans, but that's expected to happen here this week. And for as much as Sirianni says, hey, let's run it back, yeah, I think Kellen Moore is going to go chase after that first head coaching job.
All right, I can't wait. 2025. And point the finger at me here, Danger, because, hey, what are the odds? What are this? Who do the Eagles open up against next year?
All right, we can narrow it down.
We can narrow it down. All right, so boy, they've got their choices. You got, of course, the divisional teams, the Cowboys, Giants, Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say 2 of those 3 I would sign up for. Like Washington going back, sure.
That'd be fun.
Dallas is always a safe play.
They'll draw. By the way, we got to make sure we check the ratings of the Super Bowl, too. I want to see.
I keep refreshing.
Yeah.
They haven't come out
Are we
yet.
getting them today or tomorrow?
I don't know.
I wonder if because the game was such
bad.
a blowout that the
Yeah.
ratings will be down by default. I thought they were going to be down just because it was kind of a boring matchup. I thought it was a boring was a boring game.
Well, then part of this too was now they're counting the Nielsen. Like if you go to like an establishment, although like Super Bowl isn't a place you really go out to, they weren't counting that before. And now so there's a different metric when it comes to streaming. So I'm like, haha, I might win my argument here.
Back to the kickoff game.
Yeah, back to the kickoff game. Chicago.
Nah.
Detroit.
Yes.
Denver.
No.
Raiders.
No.
Rams.
Yes.
Yeah. You got some options there.
You could narrow it down, and you could see the Commanders, you could see the Rams, you could see the Lions. And if you can't make that work and you just want to go for the big number, bring in Dallas and feed Dallas to the Wolves. I mean, Philly fan has a disdain for Dallas that is on another level. It's an immeasurable scale, their hatred for the Cowboys. So if you want to feed Dallas to the Wolves, send them into Philly for that kickoff game week 1 with a new head coach in Philadelphia. Oh,
it's one of those games, Danger, where if you put the Raiders there, we're tuning in. Aren't we? Like, is it really
the kickoff game?
Yeah, the kickoff game is.
Yeah, but you want a good game, right?
I think you want a good game to keep people.
I thought this year's kickoff game between the Chiefs and the Ravens was magnificent. I loved it, man. I thought that was the best game the Chiefs played all year. The physicality of that game, for it being a week 1 game, those two teams just beat the crap out of each other. It was fun. So if you want something like that, week 1, there's only one team on the list you got to bring in, and that's the Lions. I would love to see the Lions go into Philly with that offensive line. The thing about the Lions is, what do they look like with new coordinators? Do they maintain their same culture? Does it look the same without an offensive and defensive coordinator alongside Dan Campbell? Who are those guys? Realistically, though, from just a matchup standpoint, that's the best matchup, I think, out of the 3 teams that we mentioned, the Commanders, the Rams. I would take the Lions.
Philadelphia coming to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bills will be hosting both Super Bowl teams next year.
No big deal.
Okay.
Philadelphia, the plus 600 favorite to win next year's Super Bowl. You have a 3-way tie between the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens are plus 700. Then the Lions at plus 1,000.
Part of me thinks the Lions will bounce back. The thing that scares me is not what you think, is, having both coordinators go out the door. Can Dan Campbell have a good staff?
Well, just view Dan Campbell as we viewed Nick Sirianni just now. He's not really the guy that's drawing it all up. He's the guy that's the forward-facing guy. He's the guy that's setting the tone for the culture. He's the guy that's getting them fired up.
Well, that's good. And I think it's good that Sean McDermott, where he is setting the culture, he can roll his sleeves up on defense, because I look at what Vic Fangio did. And Vic Fangio, you don't hear him with platitudes. You don't like Bobby Babbitt seems a little green compared to Vic Fangio, compared to Steve Spagnuolo. So does Joe Brady. So I think like one of those storylines, like next year, if the Bills are going to get over the top, do they have the coordinators to draw it up when you get to one of these high pressure games?
He was fantastic. Absolutely. The defense was just amazing. For them to get the kind of pressure that they got against that Chiefs offensive line, you didn't have to blitz. You limited every gap. You got pressure on Mahomes. You sacked him more than he's been sacked his entire career. So containing the backfield, making them one-dimensional. I mean, it was just a great game plan, and they were able to use that size and athleticism up front, get that push that they needed, and there was no answer. The Chiefs' offensive line looked mortal. And I can't help but think if the Bills had that kind of size and physicality on their defensive line, would you have seen a different outcome in the AFC Championship game? You would have, of course.
Had the Bills, had Dalton Kincaid come up with a catch and they somehow escape Arrowhead, and I've seen this. Well, actually, the Chiefs did the Bills a favor because they would have been clocked. I'm not so sure about that, and here's why. I think that the Chiefs' offensive line, we've been saying this all year, they were exposed. The Bills have a really good offensive line. I still think Philadelphia probably would have won that game, though.
Yeah, I'd give the Eagles the edge on that one. But, who knows? I mean, injuries happen. In-game decisions can vault you or hurt you. The Bills going into a game like that, I mean, the matchup would have been a tight matchup. It would have been probably very similar to what we saw last year. The difference here is Saquon Barkley. And so if you employ the Chiefs strategy, let's eliminate Saquon Barkley and then hope that Jalen Hurts doesn't beat you. And honestly, what you did against the Ravens is kind of the same deal, right? Like, we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us, and let's force Lamar Jackson into making some mistakes. If you could do that, maybe you beat the Eagles, or you at least make it a game. You win that game last year, or you lose that game last year. What was it? 37-34 on the miracle kick in the rain by the Eagles. But the Chiefs' defense, they limited Saquon. It wasn't Saquon that hurt him. It was Jalen Hurts, and they got the best of that Steve Spagnuolo defense. Unbelievable. I don't think anybody – well, I mean, we knew that was going to go. We knew it was going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
We predicted that on Friday. What did I say, 52-19? Not too far off. Not too far off.
I said 81-0 when they got the, it's 37-0.
Halfway there. Yeah. Well, now the bittersweet feeling of the end of another NFL season.
What's the sweet part? It's just bitter.
When do we unpack our bold predictions?
What do you say Thursday?
Thursday. Yeah, that's good.
Thursday.
I'm back Thursday.
Unless something unexpected happens. Is it unexpected that Matthew Smiley got fired?
We should talk about that. Sean McDermott at the end of season press conference basically making it sound like they're going to run it back. Matt would be back. We had 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus as Mike Catalana joined us in the 3 o'clock hour. He's like, I don't know that it was a reversal of course so much as it was when he made those statements. He probably hadn't had a chance to evaluate or gone through that process. But in doing so now, you make that move. And do you buy that?
No, I'm not buying that. I mean, it's possible, certainly. I think, and I don't have any proof of this, but the timing of this danger is, okay, why did this leak out on Super Bowl Sunday? It's not a story you would want out there that we're firing, unless you have somebody in mind you want to hire right away. My theory is this. This was a week where actually the brass of the Buffalo Bills did get together, as they should. Your quarterback's the MVP. And where they got together, it was the center of the football universe. And there's a lot of decision makers around there. And Terry Pegula, I'm sure, is hobnobbing with the fellow owners, rubbing shoulders with other decision makers. And maybe somebody brings up special teams here or there. I'm just thinking this was a suggestion from the owner. Terry Pegula is the owner who is quiet, doesn't talk, but don't believe for a second that he just kind of, hey, gentlemen, you do your own thing. He's the guy that would watch film with Rex Ryan. He's the guy that Rex and Doug had to call every week.
Wants to be involved.
Yeah. Because you don't hear about that doesn't mean he's not.
Oh, and what's
involved.
the thing that we heard from Paul Hamilton when we had him on about the Sabres. The idea that Terry Pegula fired Jason Botterill because he felt like he wasn't heard.
Wasn't heard.
I wasn't heard. So you have to make sure the owner is heard. If you're Brandon Beane and you're Sean McDermott, how do you make sure that he's heard? Well, maybe he wants a lot of different things changed about this team, but to make sure he's heard, you move on from this special teams coordinator.
There also is kind of a human element sort of thing. It's probably not easy firing somebody that maybe you do have respect for.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that. I'm sure Sean McDermott doesn't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. But if you've got the boss telling you, hey, man, this has to happen, in order for him to be heard, maybe this is the sacrifice that you make.
But is any Bills fan saying, no, this is the wrong move?
No.
It sounds cruel, but it's the right move.
It's you have an opportunity to upgrade. Take that opportunity. Because it wasn't the worst special teams performance you've ever seen by a team, but it wasn't great. Nine players on the field. 9 players on the field. Maybe it was a 0 play, but
9 times.
The fake punts.
Heck, go back to the tenure, like kickoff to lose the game against the Jets.
Yes.
In overtime. Or
a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, a couple seasons ago, yeah.
Right. So the big kickoff return, or the big return against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Again, you could find, there's no shortage of plays. Too many men against the Denver Broncos on Monday night in the 2023 season. Just gross. So, yeah, we need to button that up, clean that up a little bit. They make the move, according to many reports. The Bills moving on from Matthew Smiley as their special teams coordinator.
Yeah, and part of it, too, is how do you get better special teams? Well, you got to draft better. You actually have to kind of identify that. And we always said, okay, what are we doing keeping the Tyler Matakaviches around here? But maybe there is something to that. If you can afford a spot or two with the back end, what will help, I would think? I'm finding a way to keep Mac Hollins on this roster. Yeah,
that's the guy, right?
You also, hey, it's great that you have a cap. And honestly, I want to ask this question to Sean McDermott. I hope somebody would. You have a captain for offense. You have a captain for defense. There's no captain for special teams. Make Mac Hollins the captain for special teams, please.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the next move is and who they bring in to be the next special teams coordinator. Matthew Smiley on the way out. And I don't think there are a lot of Bills fans that are upset about that. I think, if anything, we're wondering what took so long. Why didn't you make this move sooner or at the end of the season? But they take their time. They evaluate. Maybe the owner gets involved, and you see this move being made.
Did you find it kind of delicious that Taylor Swift was being booed last night?
I no, because I just think Eagles fans are Eagles fans. Yeah. Like, that's what what I don't understand is why when she was here, we didn't boo her when she was here.
You know the answer to that. We love stars. Hey, it's Buffalo, but we have that same attitude here in Rochester.
Like why did we all of a sudden embrace Travis Kelce's brother because he's in the suites chugging beers with his shirt off? We think he's one of us.
We love stars.
Yeah. We need to stop.
Yeah.
We need to be bigger than that, because their reaction, the Eagles fans' reaction, is the reaction every team should have when her mug shows up on the big screen. Yes, you boo her. She is the enemy. She is the enemy.
She grew up an Eagle fan. She grew up outside of Philly.
Yeah, and now.
Yeah,
so she deserves that. And if she doesn't understand that, then somebody needs to explain to her what being a fan is really about.
Can you go into the whole background? Because I saw this take from Stephen A. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Why was Serena if I had on my bingo card who was going to show up for the halftime show? Serena Williams?
Yeah.
Why?
Look, I won't go too in detail about the halftime show. I've seen a lot of reaction to it, both positive and negative. I know a lot of people that have no idea what was going on, didn't know any of the songs. All of that's aside. The beef between Kendrick Lamar and Drake has been well publicized, and the biggest song of last year.
Where does it stem from? Honestly, I'm oblivious to all this.
It was essentially Drake saying, hey, the biggest 3 rappers in the world are me and Kendrick and J. Cole. And Kendrick basically went on a track and said, screw you, I'm the best. everybody else is taking a backseat to me. And they took offense to that.
Right.
They went back and forth. And some of the jabs got personal. And Drake went after Kendrick's family. And Kendrick, it's again, he just eviscerated Drake. I mean, he was just on the largest stage in the world calling Drake a pedophile. Basically, you like him young? And he's doing it with a smile on his face. Like, yeah, Drake, I hear you like him young. And he's wearing the chain, the A that he's wearing, A minor. Probably struck a chord, and it's probably A minor. So you have the entire Superdome singing along to this hook that is basically saying Drake likes young girls. Drake dated Serena Williams about 10 years ago. For about 4 years.
Okay, that I did not know.
Like 2011 to 2015. The rumors were that they were together. Drake was going to all of her tournaments. He was there courtside. And so that ended. Serena obviously gets married, has a family. But I don't imagine that it ended well for Serena to show up at the Super Bowl. And look, they're both from Compton as well, so there's that connection as well. They're not like us. It really is about, it's more than just about the beef with Drake. It's about all of it. Like, we are from Compton. This is our culture. This is what we're about. You are not like us. You may not understand it, but here's what it's about.
Okay. I get that. But this is Stephen A's point.
Stephen A sees Serena.
No!
Serena's husband. So Serena is going out of her way to troll her ex-boyfriend.
Yes.
Yes, that's part of it, too.
It's ruthless. Completely ruthless. But also, they're both from Compton. So there's that angle as well. It's the embracing of where we are from. This is what we came up in. This is what we're about. And they're not like us. But for her to do that, like, she couldn't do what she did on stage at the Super Bowl at any of her tennis tournaments. She would have gotten fined for that, right?
Right.
Like, that would have been so frowned upon. So, yeah, there's multiple elements as to why it made sense that she was there.
Like, you got to be like a strong, okay, hon, you want to go troll your ex-boyfriend?
I think it's great. Yeah, go get him. Sick him. It went badly. You have ill feelings towards him. Go get him. And be a part of this moment. I mean, I think.
I didn't. I always thought, okay, there's Drake. Oh, he's a sports fan. He's all for Toronto. I'm like, did not know.
No. Kendrick Lamar is ruthless.
Kendrick Lamar's like a really smart guy, too.
Really, really smart. If you break down everything that was about that, the details of that performance, and I know that that's not what a lot of people want to do. They just want to enjoy it. They just want to. I want songs that I know or songs that I can sing along to. And
no, this wasn't.
That wasn't
no,
that.
That wasn't. Well, you're bringing him in, don't you? Kind of expect.
I think you have to. And whether you agree with what he's putting out there or not, I don't really care. I thought it was brilliantly done. I'm not putting it up. I'm not saying it's a better performance than some of the better that I remember, like Prince is number one. I thought the LA performance with Dre and Snoop, I thought that was better than Kendrick's performance. For what Kendrick brought to the field in that performance, the messaging, the art behind it, I thought was great. I didn't have a problem with it.
Worst all time, Black Eyed Peas.
Fun, but yeah, not great. Not great. So there's your answer as to why Serena was out there. And if for Stephen A. doesn't understand it, like, maybe it just didn't end well, like really didn't end well. And she actually, beyond just not ending well, her relationship ending well with Drake, supporting Kendrick. Like, we're both from Compton. This is how you can rise from the streets of Compton to the biggest platform in the world and performing on the Super Bowl. I thought it was pretty cool. We get to a round of shots next, Gino.
Yeah, boy, from the NBA, let's check in on you want to talk about a story that has legs? Luka may play tonight.
Right.
The fallout in Dallas.
Oh, boy.
It's as bad as you can kind of imagine. Like, are you kidding me? The owner had to kind of, like, legitimately say we're not moving the franchise, which begs the question, okay, who said you were? Oh, Is this even something?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll dive into that. We'll get you set up for the NBA tonight. We don't have, maybe we will before we get off the air, the Super Bowl TV numbers, but what about the numbers from the NFL Honors Show? And then could this actually be, was this a troll job? Could America's favorite couple actually be engaged? By favorite couple, I mean, not our favorite couple in the sport. When we make fun of.
Okay. We got a lot to get to here. A round of shots. Don't forget about last call. You can pull up a stool and join us before we close up shop and have the final word on today's show at 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN.
update.
Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions for the second time. Jalen Hurts, the Super Bowl MVP.
It's never been about anyone else. It's just been about the journey of embracing everything and trying to grow and be the best that I can be, you know. And so to be able to bring a championship back to Philadelphia means everything.
Meanwhile, multiple reports have the Buffalo Bills firing special teams coordinator Matthew Smiley. The Hammers played just one game this past weekend. It was a win Friday against Belleville. Next in action, the rare Tuesday night game tomorrow night in Cleveland. Luka Doncic probable tonight. This would be his Laker debut. Los Angeles hosting Utah. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today you can save half off with card. Get some golf to Eaglevale. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Bone-crunching hits, backboard-shattering dunks, bat flips, and hat tricks. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, let's pick up some of the scraps that we may have left on the cutting room floor here. Get to a round of shots, Gino.
And, I'm not mentioning the hockey team down the road.
The S word.
The S word. They lost. We don't see them until February 22nd.
A couple of weeks here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is like a Francesa for Franceses.
Well, explain to me what the NHL thought was a good idea.
The Four Nations tournament, which
who cares?
U.S., Canada, Finland, and Sweden. This is their answer, Danger, to the Olympics. This is
who
supposed to
cares?
get us all jazzed up here.
I'd get excited if the pros played in the Olympics and we could watch that. I don't know that I need to see this.
Well, you see, the NHL gets to keep their money this way, and they get to help out, and you get gate revenue in Boston.
who cares?
Montreal. I mean, there isn't a show that talks more hockey than us, and we're not even going to touch it.
I have no intentions of watching it, to be honest. I love hockey, but I don't really care about the Four Nations tournament.
Who cares?
Sell me on it, but I'm not there.
You would think that, hey, let's book as many games. Football is over. Let's get people in the arena. No. Anthony Davis, his debut with the Dallas Mavericks, Danger, couldn't have gone any worse. The big man suffering a left abductor strain. First game in a Mavs uniform. Expect him to miss multiple weeks. It could be up to a month. Meanwhile, there was a rumor, maybe more than a rumor, going around that the reason for the trade, the Doncic trade, was to tank the team, making it easier to move the Mavs to Las Vegas. Says the new owner, Patrick Dumont, quote, the Dallas Mavericks are not moving to Las Vegas. There is no question in that. The answer is unequivocally the Dallas Mavericks are the Dallas Mavericks, and they will be in Dallas.
Okay, so tank in what way? I mean, you're less valuable if if fans aren't spending money to go there and they think you're tanking.
Well, part of this guy is a developer who made his money in casinos, and for whatever reason, somebody has to fill me in on this. We have legalized wagering in New York City. They don't have it in Texas. I thought Texas was going to be the one place where, like, come on in, and they're just chomping at the bit, but they can't get it through. So somehow this would be connected to that. I don't know, but for now, though, it's just not a good scene here. First day without the NFL, as we mentioned. There are 10 games in the NBA tonight. Okay, how many games in the NHL tonight? 0. 10 in the NBA tonight. Minnesota's at Cleveland, Boston at Miami. NBA TV, we get to see Jimmy Butler and the Golden State Warriors take on Milwaukee, 8 o'clock, 10:30 tonight. As we mentioned in the update, looking like Luka will make his Laker debut as they take on Utah. That's on ESPN.
I'm not ready.
Who cares?
I'm not ready. I'm not ready to switch gears and start watching NBA games.
It's okay. It's okay. You're going through the stages of grief now.
I think that's exactly what it is. I'll get there, but I'm not there yet.
Remember, we were having this debate last week. Which team has the best 1 through 4 in a major league lineup today? Look, the answer is the Dodgers. Not going to get me to say the Mets. You brought up Philadelphia, which I DQ because of their cleanup hitter, Alec Boehm. Well, Boehm doing things in other areas quite well for himself. ESPN betting analyst Erin Dolan telling the world this week that she is indeed dating the Phillies' third baseman, bringing him as her +1 to the Super Bowl.
Way to go, Alec.
She's talented.
She has talents.
Yes. while we await the Super Bowl TV numbers, and I just looked a few minutes ago, they're not out. The ratings for the NFL Honor Show, they weren't good.
No? Really?
No.
Shocking.
Thursday night's made-for-TV event drew in 2.3 million. That's down from the 2.9 million the previous year when Lamar Jackson won it.
Oh, boy.
It was still far and away the biggest sporting programming-wise event on Thursday. Mavs Celtics drew in 1.8 on TNT.
Isn't that crazy that even when the NFL isn't trying, or they're trying, but even when it's not good, it's still better than the best thing that the other leagues can trot out there?
I'm wondering, too, was part of that it was in Vegas and it's glitzy and it's everything else? And I don't know. Does the venue, do you
get up?
Be part of it?
I mean, are we blaming Josh Allen for the low ratings? Are we saying that the MVP was not interesting? I mean, that was the closest MVP race that they've had in a long, long time. You didn't know that Josh Allen was winning it until the day of, like, oh, Josh Allen is going to win this thing.
Yeah.
And is that why, or is it just fatigue at this point? Like, okay, maybe did we have too much football in December and January?
No.
Were there people that were fatigued? The conversation was fatiguing. Gene, the conversation of officiating and it's rigged, all of that was fatiguing. Maybe that has something to do with it. They need to clean that up.
By the time the award ceremony came around, we were exhausted from the Lamar and Josh meeting, everybody just getting all worked up.
The debates are fatiguing, for sure.
Finally, TMZ is in on this. Quote, Belichick and Hudson mum on engagement rumors? Okay. First, 24-year-old Jordan Hudson was wearing a ring. We told you about this last Friday. It wasn't one of his Super Bowl rings.
At the NFL Honors.
Yeah. It was a college cheerleading championship ring. But after that, there was another ring that was on a ring finger that would suggest that maybe there is something going on and that the couple is not answering to it. Bill, do what you want to do. Just make sure you get that prenup.
Holla, we want prenup. Yeah, as if the dress wasn't enough of a conversation starter, you're wearing not just your college ring, your championship ring from cheerleading, Division III cheerleading. You're also wearing the ring on the other finger. I saw something that crossed my feed and made me chuckle. It was a picture of the two of them on the red carpet at the NFL Honors, and it was like, guys, this is a reminder, you aren't single because you're ugly. You're single because you're ugly and broke. That's all it is, guys.
Yeah.
You're not single because you're ugly.
No, come on, dude. Stop.
If you look in the mirror and you say
you are like, don't you believe in love? Don't you believe that they sat on a plane and they had a really great conversation?
I'm sure they had.
And then it was sparked a coffee or something like that. And they have so much in common that they, he lives on Nantucket. She's been to Nantucket. He's coached in games with their word cheerleader. She is a cheerleader. I mean, you're not buying that?
No, I think that I'm sure she has a wonderful personality. I'm sure Bill is engaging as all hell, charming. I'm sure all of that played into his favor, that he charmed the pants off her. There's no question in my mind that money has nothing to do with it.
What if this is like one of the biggest swindles ever? This is just all a ruse to get the old man's money.
Yeah, she's in it for this is a long con.
Yeah.
She's in it for the long haul, and she's going to take him for everything. Sure. No, that can't happen because this is true love. This is true love.
It's like the movie Tommy Boy or something.
Yeah.
The long con.
And again, gentlemen, if you're single and you look at yourself in the mirror and your self-esteem is low and you're like, what woman is going to date me? I look like a troll. It's not because you're ugly. It's because you're ugly and broke. So get your nose in a book, put down the video game controller, work towards getting a career that will pay you handsomely, and that will mask any deficiencies that you have physically. Trust us. Look at Belichick. That's the template to follow.
On this Valentine's week, you come to the sports bar
We
for
give you
advice
all the
on
romantic
love.
advice you could possibly want. You want happiness in your romance and in your love life? Look at Belichick and Jordan. I mean, she's not with him because he's a looker.
All right, so how did the executive producer buy my shtick? I was broke. I had nothing, like working part-time in radio.
Right.
Like, I'm not 6 foot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what you saw, but I'm not going to complain.
No complaints. Somehow it worked out. But yeah, did they get engaged? Secreting? I don't really care. If they're happy together, good for you. Good for you, Bill Belichick. You're a role model for the rest of us. We need to hustle. We need to work harder. We need to make more money because we're not alone because we're ugly. We're alone because we're ugly and we're broke. Got to get that bag like Belichick did. That's the key. Tomorrow on the show, we are back. Actually, Gene is back tomorrow on the show.
With Terrible Time Timmy, and then maybe we'll ask the Dandalorian to stick around. By the way, Dandalorian and a mustache.
Oh, that's the guy.
Yeah, that's. I'm like.
I mean, for all the commercials we saw with eyebrows flying around and mustaches being slapped around, the mustache making a return, and with the Bills' new defensive guy that they brought in, Nielsen from Jacksonville with the mustache. Yeah, if anybody's going to rock a mustache in the sports bar, it's got to be the Dandalorian, our bounty hunter, the finest audio in the galaxy, who we thank every day for helping us out here in the sports bar. We thank you for spending some of your afternoon with us. We know how many options you have for your sports information and entertainment. And if you choose us, even if it's just for a few minutes on the ride home, that is humbling. Thanks for everybody watching on the YouTube stream at The Fan Rochester, our channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment there. We appreciate that. And, of course, you can always get our work in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Search out the sports bar wherever you get your shows, and you'll find all of our appearances and shows listed for you there. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.